Hey everyone, welcome to the inaugural episode of Tiny Bubbles. It is our mole recap podcast over here on Silent Podcast, where we are anything but silent. My name is Kari, and I am joined by my co-host JD.
Hello.
JD, welcome to the brand. Welcome to the Silent Podcast, network. We are so excited to have you here as a co-host because I know that your excitement for this TV show is equal, if not surpasses mine. And so I'm just so excited to get to talk about this show with someone who loves it as much as I do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to get to talk about the first 2 episodes of this Mole reboot. And yeah, I mean, The Mole is one of, if not my favorite reality show, bar none. So suffice to say that my excitement for this our little discussion is through the roof. Happy to be here.
Yes, I have always loved The Mole, and it was just so sad that it never panned out in the way that some of the other TV shows that have stuck around, like Survivor and Big Brother, did, because it's definitely a different different type of reality TV competition where I don't want to say like it's a higher brow by any means, but it's different because like we're along for the ride, the mystery. We're left here speculating who is the mole. And so, first, in case you are someone who just likes to listen to us talk and don't watch the show, let's give you a quick premise because GD, you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
We have people who will listen and be like, yeah, we just think you guys are funny. See, Valencia, right in the chat on time.
Thank you,
Our
Valencia.
girl, our biggest supporter, lover. So The Mole is a TV show where they gather, let's say 10 to 12, in this case 12 contestants to compete in missions to win money. This money goes towards a prize, and the winner of the show gets this prize of the money that they've accumulated. However, one person is designated by production to be the mole for the whole season. The mole's main goal is to sabotage discreetly because you don't want to get caught. You don't want to be put on blast. So we are along for the ride, like I said, trying to figure out who the mole is with these contestants. And then after each, we'll say like set of missions, because there could be one mission, there could be a couple missions, there's a quiz. And in this quiz, you are answering questions about the mole. If you have the least amount of questions correct, you are sent home. So a component of this I've always liked is the idea that we're not voting people out. Like, we're eliminating the weakest link just because you are the weakest link. Like, and
Right.
You've done this to yourself. You haven't figured it out. So there's some social strategy, but you don't necessarily need alliances, but alliances could help you, but they could hurt you. And it's a whole different ball game than a show like Survivor, Big Brother. But it's just so interesting.
Yeah. I feel like The Mole, more than like any other reality TV show out there, like allows the audience to play at home. And yeah, like you said, it's a shame that its original run didn't get the reception that I believe it deserved. But I'm glad that we've revived it in the modern era, and especially with Netflix picking it up and making it such a massive production. I'm really excited to see how things pan out.
Yeah, and I think I can speak for both of us based off of our pre-podcast conversation. We're loving it so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hooked in.
I like the fact that I stopped at episode 2 and didn't just keep watching. Whew, it took some willpower. But before we get into episodes 1 and 2 and talk to you about all the players that we have, JD, what is your mole history, your mole experience? How did you come to love this show?
That is a great question, and I actually haven't really thought about it until about 5 minutes ago when you said that. That's what we're going to be talking about. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out like what my first sort of like interaction with the show was, and I think it was just during a time in my life, like in high school, where I was spending a lot of time just like watching random reality TV shows. I think I had watched another ABC produced show called Who Done It first.
Mm-hmm.
And after doing some like background research on Who Done It, I found The Mole. There were like entire seasons uploaded on YouTube, and I just like dove straight in. And it was like similar enough vibe wise to the Who Done It, the mole, but different enough where I was still able to like be interested and not get bored, and especially the elimination format of like, again, like if you are the weakest link, you are going home. Like that is something that you don't see a lot, and that just had me hooked in from day dot. So I've watched all 5 American before this current one, all 5 American seasons, and then I've seen one full season of the Netherlands version. Um, Side note, V is the Mole, 2018. If only for the first episode, worth the watch. Absolutely.
I have friends who may or may not tune into this either live or later. We're in our own little separate private Discord. Actually, I'm jumping ahead, but some of them have watched the international ones. I just suck at subtitles. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe one day I'll get there. But in terms of the mole, I don't remember how I got into it. I just know I was in it from day one. Like I was watching it when it aired week by week with Catherine. Was it like Steven?
Mm-hmm.
That little trio, right? And they were like in Spain and stuff. Like I still remember that. And just got like hooked so quickly. My first ever like mini org type of thing was on Facebook, a mole game. My
Nice.
my ally was a guy named Nate, and we also played with a couple other people that Nate created it. I just kind of like helped along, but we like hosted one. I came in second for the season that I played because
Nice.
listen to this. No, not nice. Here's why. So I had to get my appendix removed, and and it was like the host said like, hey, I'm sending out the quiz in the next like 24 hours. And the host didn't like me because I'm mouthy now, but when I was younger, I was mouthier. Like I let you know what I was thinking when I was thinking. Like
Mm-hmm.
the filter I've developed, like my mom should be proud, but host was not a big fan of me. So I sent him a message and was like, hey, I'm going to the hospital. I think it's my appendix. Like, can you hold off? That asshole sent the quiz out while I was getting an internal organ removed.
They were just like, tough shit. Get a better appendix.
And I knew who the mole was, but it was based off time. So like, if we got all like 10 questions right, but the other person did it first, then they win. And that's exactly what happened because I was getting my appendix out, and so I will never let that go. Whoever that host was, I don't remember your name.
And you shouldn't.
No. I won't. But I still have a group chat with people that played the season that I like semi-hosted. All the credit to Nate. He did all the hard work. We did it over AIM. Like it was crazy. It's so long ago. But we're in a Discord. We're like talking about this season right now. I was just talking to them about the first couple episodes as well. So like our mole fandom stays strong. And we hold it down over here.
It's kind of like a mini cult, but we
truly. I mean, like, there's worse things to be in a cult for.
True, so, very true.
Like, all praise Anderson Cooper and Dennis Rodman. Those would be my two leaders.
Yeah, I will gladly bow down to Anderson Cooper. Absolutely.
Not Dennis Rodman, though?
Maybe. Depends how many drinks you got in me.
I quickly, like, I had an obsession with Dennis Rodman for a little while because of his celebrity mole stint. But anyway, let's get into this season. So like we said, we're going to cover the first 2 episodes. We know that 5 of them dropped, but talking about 5 episodes on a podcast of a TV show is a lot to do. And we also want to put content out for you like right away so that I know for me, like the reason I got into podcasts in general was just being able to hear other people talk about a show that I'm watching and maybe people in my life aren't watching. Now I'm like surrounded by this internet community that watches all the shows that I do, which is nice. But we wanted to get something out here for you so you can, think about it, digest, think our opinions are stupid or we're the smartest people alive or somewhere in between. But like, we're here for you.
Yeah. And I would also just like to add, like, we don't want to keep you here for 5 hours. So I feel like the smart decision to break it up.
Yes. So let's get into our cast.
Yes.
I'm just going to run down the order that I have them in. We have Casey, who said she's a COVID nurse. My question is, do you think she specializes in anything else? What did she do before COVID?
See, I guess I just gave her the benefit of the doubt, and because I have down in my notes just nurse, so I'm hoping that like she was like an actual nurse before the pandemic and
I'm
not.
sure she was.
Yeah, I would like to think so. So yeah,
It's just weird to me to like frame yourself as like I'm a COVID nurse specifically. Like,
yeah,
is
like.
that something we can like major and minor in college now?
I mean, maybe there's like a class on it or two.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, now working in a hospital and seeing like how much things had to change because of COVID, but I just thought it was interesting. She introduced herself as a COVID nurse and not just a nurse who had to work through the COVID
Hmm.
epidemic and all that. But here we are. We have, oh God, how am I already forgetting to say her name? I watched this
Is
just like
it
2 hours ago.
is it Kasi?
Yes, I wrote Kasi, but for some reason, it just doesn't seem like Kasi to me. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, we've
because
got
her name is
Kasi.
spelled Kesi.
Right,
The
and I
E doesn't make
changed
the
it to
sound
A.
that you think it does.
Yes. As someone whose name is always phonetically mispronounced, I'm not judging you, Kasi. Um, the reason was I have it written as Kasi. I'm like, but I think her name is Kesi. Maybe I just wrote it phonetically for myself and forgot that. But she's a computer analyst.
Hmm.
And here's like a good place I think to stop. Do you think that professions matter in this game?
Have they ever? I'm trying to think of
I
a
think
time
so.
where
I don't think
like.
like their job necessarily, but
Mhm.
like I think your job can lend some things to you that might be good for you in this game.
I can see that, but I feel like there's so many different transferable skills like between like various like job fields where like everyone's going to be picking up like some sort of skills that'll help them in the game through their like past career. So I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
if it will matter that much. Like for me, for Kate, for Kasi, right?
Yeah, you told me it was Kasi, so if we're
um,
wrong, it's on you
being
now.
a computer analyst, I feel like that means she's able to just approach things from a very like information based perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe her social reads might not be the best, but like her ability to take in information and being able to see what other people are doing in real time and sort of translating that into whether or not she thinks that's the mole. Like I feel like that's something that'll help her out in the game. Whereas someone like I don't know, maybe we'll figure something out, but maybe someone else who is like a more front facing, a person who's in a more front facing career, um, has better social reads, but probably not able to make the same kind of logical conclusions because they don't have the sort of like background in doing so.
Well, I asked that question in a leading way because the next person I have is Osei,
Mm-hmm.
who tells us that he's a real estate broker from New York City, correct?
Yes.
I went to Osei's Instagram today,
Mm-hmm.
and it says he's an actor, traveler, and artist.
Okay, so it's funny you say that because I feel like real estate agent, real estate broker, whatever you want to call it, is the new like model slash actor slash waitress slash whatever. Like I feel like everyone who wants to, I feel like there's a huge pipeline between real estate and reality television. I mean, to the point where we now have like whole reality television shows based on like the real estate
Yeah.
industry. So maybe before the mole, Osei was a real estate broker, but now he's an aspiring actor. And I like that journey for him.
Okay, I like the way you frame that. That I'm not even going to keep going. Like I'm not even ask or add anything else. That's a good explanation for it, and I appreciate that. We've got Jacob the firefighter,
Mm-hmm.
where we see in episode 2, and we'll get to it, that maybe being a firefighter helped him out a little bit. And again, where a career can lend in one way
Mm-hmm.
some good things. But then we have Joy the pilot, who
Do we want to talk about it
I
now or do we want to get through the rest of the cast first?
we'll get through the rest of the cast.
Okay.
But if you left these first 2 episodes not knowing that Joy is a pilot, like, were you even watching the show? It was said a lot. If I were to go back and watch these 2 episodes again, which I might,
Mm-hmm.
I might keep track of how many times it's referenced.
It was a lot. It was a lot. I
If I
definitely
wanted to
lost
get
count.
drunk, I would make it a drinking game.
It would be a good drinking game.
Yeah, bad for me,
Or
good
like if you
for
do a bingo board,
the
like the free
rules.
space would be Joy's a pilot.
Joy's the pilot. We have Avery, which is spelled very uniquely. It's
Yeah, I'm into it.
Avori. I do like it. Who is a professional gamer.
Hmm.
Pranav, who is a law student. And so this is another place I was like, okay, hold on a second. Catherine, our first mole, was a lawyer.
True.
Pranav is a law student. Is he going to be the mole?
That is the first time I thought about that. That is a really good connection to make. I mean, we'll talk about it later. Pranav is definitely up there in terms of my suspicions as to who the mole is. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, but I never made the connection that Catherine, the first mole ever, was also a lawyer. So I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to keep an eye on that.
Yes. As the group chat I mentioned earlier said, never trust a lawyer. One of the five of us is a lawyer. So he was also our mole in the game that we created.
See, I mean,
He was
like there
also
you
like,
go. Like, I feel like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point.
yeah. We have Dom, who is a warehouse worker
Hmm.
and maybe raps on the side. So check out his SoundCloud. We have William, the brand manager,
Hmm.
which
I
is,
want to know what the brand is.
thank you. That was what I was going to ask. He, if when you see William, I think the best way to describe him is tall, broad, white guy with long blonde hair,
Hmm.
pulls it up into like a messy bun, nicer than mine. I was kind of jealous of his bun at one point. I'm like, bro, I can't do that. And also, like, what hair ties do you use? Because mine all suck. Uh, that I would be interested to know what brand he is managing.
Maybe it's like his own shampoo brand or something, or maybe hair
Oh, I
company.
was not thinking that at all, actually. I was thinking like something like super manly. I just don't know what.
Yeah, he does
Like
give off like a
chainsaws or something.
yeah, or like a beard oil or something. I don't know. I don't know why I'm so like fixated on hair right now, but I mean, he does have
if
great hair.
if you know what brand William manages,
Hit us
put it
up.
in the chat.
Yeah.
We have Greg, the marketing consultant.
Hmm.
I gotta get something off my chest right now.
Go
Greg kind
for
of
it.
annoys me.
Really?
Which actually absolutely means that Greg's gonna end up listening to this because
That's what always happens.
um I'm hoping that my opinion changes because I think he's smart and an interesting player, at least what we see through these first two episodes.
Hmm.
But there's just a layer of um like pompous
I
to
can see
him,
that.
arrogance that I'm just like, oh,
I think
why are you
my
giving us the in-depth analysis? Like, why?
I think my tolerance meter for pretension is higher than most other people's. So I hadn't really picked up on that yet, but I can definitely see it now that you're saying it. I do like the chaos sort of that Greg is injecting
You
into the
are
game.
an agent of chaos. You like if someone were to be like describe JD in 3 words, it would be agent of chaos.
I'll
Absolutely.
take that as a compliment, honestly. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, I mean like I'm not saying it negatively. I'm saying it objectively. This comes from my co-host. We played a game where he got voted out and he gave me like a muni idol essentially and
Hmm.
then comes back in and then tries to vote me out after giving me this gift. Like I was so confused by this. I'm like, this motherfucker. I was trying to help you because you helped me, and then you tried to get me voted out. I ended up winning that game, but
See, it all worked
I,
out. See, I was doing you a
I,
favor.
JD almost got me out of that game after helping me, and I was like, "What is this guy?" Okay,
Yeah.
Agent of Chaos truly is JD. So it does not surprise me that you like Greg because of that layer of chaos that we're definitely going to go over and talk
Hmm.
about that he adds to this game. All right, so then here's where I got a little suspicious of things. Two people like were not really introduced to us in that
Yep.
beginning segment. So I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, is there only 10? I thought I saw 12. Am I mixing up my numbers at like 10 episodes, 12 something? And we didn't get to really meet Samara or Sandy in that
Right.
intro
Neither of
part.
them got intros.
So to me, I'm like, oh, one of the two of them's the mole. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to hide the mole from me.
And I mean, do we talk about it this episode? We do not. So I will hold some thoughts on it. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of a trap that a lot of reality TV shows fall into, just generally, of under editing at least one woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not surprised that we get some of that here. We do get some good stuff from Samara later on. Um, but yeah, the fact that we got intros for 10 of the 12, it was interesting.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that. But what we do find out is that Samara is a psychology student
Mhm.
and Sandy is a sales manager, which to me is like very broad.
That is extremely vague. Probably the vaguest job title out of all of them.
Yeah. Besides maybe brand manager, but even brand to me is like more specific. Like
Yeah.
sales, you could sell anything. You could sell anything from like cars to
Yeah, I feel
dogs
like
to like,
sales manager needs like some sort of noun in front of it to like specify
yeah,
like what
I
exactly is the
agree.
situation here.
I 100% agree with you. So when we first met the cast, like, was there any first impressions that really stuck out to you that you were like,
The
I
one
I'm keeping this in the noggin.
there were two. The first one's from Jacob, who describes himself as like a small town guy. And I don't know why who I just get immediately suspicious of anyone who introduces themselves as like a small town guy, like very close knit. Because like it's kind of like trust the person or expect the unexpected in a way. Like
Mm-hmm.
the person you are most likely to trust is probably the one stabbing you in the back. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm still keeping my eye on Jacob for that reason alone. I don't think he's done anything across the two episodes to like add suspicion to that. But even that in itself is kind of suspicious. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
So,
yeah.
well, before you get off Jacob, what's funny was the only person I wrote anything down for besides their job was Jacob. And then
Mhm.
I erased it because I didn't want to be mean, but I'm going to say what I put down. I wrote, I hope he's not the mole because my first impression was I do not want to be stuck with this person for all 10 episodes. But then I erased it because I actually am like, oh, okay, I wouldn't mind him coming or like being around just because
Mhm.
I think he thinks differently than a lot of them. And we saw that, I think, especially in parts of episode 2. So I was very much like, I don't know. I hope he's not the mole. And what's funny is that in my group chat, 2 other people were like, Jacob's the mole. That was my first instinct.
So,
So,
okay,
like,
so maybe we're onto something
something
here.
about him, there's something about him that people are like, you're catching me for a reason and I don't know
Mhm.
why.
It kind of feels a little too good to be true. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is completely just based off of the way I'm reading the edit. Like, it kind of feels like Jacob is someone who is going to make it far regardless of whether or not he is the mole.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, maybe it could just be I'm reading into his like longevity, or it could be that he is the actual mole. And I guess there's only one way to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Who is your second person?
The second one that I wrote down was Joy, who makes a comment. I'm not sure if it's in her intro or a little later in the episode, but she makes a comment that goes along the lines of flicking everyone else off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a very mole-ish thing to say because it kind of implies that you are there for the entire time and therefore have the ability to just see people on their way out one at a time.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, Joy didn't exactly stick out to me. Like, it's not she didn't either. I just didn't really have a thought about her. I just thought, like, oh, cool. A black woman who's a pilot. Like, only
Yeah,
1%
that's
of
cool.
pilots. I was like, I got caught up on that and didn't think about her in terms of the game
That's also fair.
until later. As you to think about her in terms of the game because she's a pilot.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like towards the start of episode 2, there's something that happens that pretty much takes me off the scent of Joy completely. But once we actually start discussing it, we can talk about it more.
That's interesting because I have different opinions about Joy in episode 2. So
Hmm.
I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. So as we're getting introduced to these players, they are like walking into the Australian jungle, which one, by the way, I had no idea there was jungles in Australia, so I'm learning here. And they're walking towards a plane, which I don't know if you remember. I'm sure because you watched it more recently than I have. Because if you watched it in high school versus like I watched it in high school, but I'm like 30 years older than you. Not 30, but
yeah, no.
The Mole, the TV show, dropped clues for us about
They did.
who was like the mole had 4 letters, and it was like the 4th person in the theme song was the mole in the first. And so I'm sitting here being like, is this fucking clue that Joy is the mole because they're going to a plane and Joy is a pilot? Did that cross your mind at all?
Funnily enough, no, it didn't. But like that's okay. So for me, because like I feel like you never see the mole or like hints towards the mole repeated. So I feel like something like that would just be a little too obvious.
I don't know. Yeah. It could be that like they're just because at the end of the season they're going to be like, yeah, we gave you the biggest clue in episode 1. They have to walk towards a plane. Like, you didn't think it was Joy when there's a plane? Like,
oh my God,
on.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So right away, I'm like, if Joy is a mole, I'm going to kind of be mad because this is what I was thinking. However, I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open and look for other clues. But they have to walk towards this plane. And they're searching it, trying to find a way to get into it, looking for a key. They can't find anything. And then it was Greg pulls out a triangle, which
why would you bring the triangle?
If you're one luxury item for on the mole, it's a triangle. He's like, I'm just trying to start a band. I just want to be.
But what did you bring? Like even like maybe not a guitar, but like something more compact, like a ukulele or something, would be more like.
He's a percussionist.
I guess. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Fair point. I was just very thrown off by the triangle. We never got an explanation on it either. Nope. And I think it was Osei who was like, where the fuck did this guy get a triangle from? That is some mole behavior.
I love the idea of just like secret agents just carrying a musical instrument like somewhere disguised in their person. I think that's really funny.
It's like ding ding ding. Anyway, showing up. Hard to fill in Anderson's shoes. Anderson and Rashad will always be 2 of the greatest hosts to me. However, so far I'm happy with Alex, but Alex shows up, right? Yeah. And she explains what their first mission is. So their first mission is they have to retrieve 3 pieces of cargo from the jungle. Each piece of cargo is worth $5,000 towards the pot. There's 1 piece of cargo up in the trees. There's 1 piece of cargo buried underground. And there's 1 piece of cargo that's underwater. So they have to divide up into groups and go get this cargo. Then they have to keep the cargo safe until the morning. Everything they need is in the plane, and that's all the information that they get. So they have 1 hour to go and retrieve this cargo and bring it back to the plane.
Right.
What do you think of this first mission?
I think it's a really good first mission because it's not something where it's just one person doing one task. It's forcing you immediately to sort of like break off into groups and use your own sort of like intuition on, do you trust the person sitting next to you? Do you trust the person who is supposed to be doing this with you? And I didn't write it down. Were teams decided sort of like randomly, or were they chosen, whether by Alex or by the cast themselves?
Greg told you they broke themselves down, which was all based on their own interpretation of themselves. So Greg says that the high up group, the ones that had to get the cargo that was up in a tree, are the people that are physical overachievers. And so in that group of the physical overachievers, William, Dom, Avery, and how am I forgetting to say her name right?
Kasi.
Kasi. I need to put it phonetically because I want to say Casey, and it's Kasi. I'll get there eventually.
It would be very confusing if it was Casey.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have a Casey.
Exactly.
And that's why it's not helping me. Okay, Kasi. Kasi. You can do this, Carrie. It is Kasi. So William, Dom, Kasi, and Avery. And Avery's like, I like going up high. We come to find out that like Avery is basically a professional climber, professional gamer, professional climber. Just like she can do it.
Is there a third professional hiding in there somewhere? Who knows?
I'm sure we'll find one.
Yeah.
We have 8 more episodes to figure it out.
Exactly. A lot of time.
Then Greg says that the down low group, the ones that have to dig up the thing from underground, are the people that want to hide in the dirt like a mole. And that group is Samara, Joy, Sandy, and Osei. Our last group, the water group, attracts the people that want to be perceived as team players because that's the job that no one wants to do, go in the water. And so in that group, we have Greg, Pranav, Jacob, and Casey.
Yeah.
So they split themselves up. It actually, I think, started because Avery was like, I like going up high. So, and then people kind of followed her lead.
Just sort of place of best fit.
Yeah, which I think is like helpful in a social strategy game to see like how people divide themselves up. I like that they're not forced into, or like, I like that they're not in producer picked groups because then to me it would feel like there's a little bit too much producer.
Like interference,
You know, yeah, exactly. So I liked that this happened. And it is at this point that we get Dom's rap about. So
did you happen to write down the lyrics of that rap? Because I didn't.
No, but next episode we'll have a theme song and it'll be the lyrics to that rap. I will sing it myself. I'm just kidding. Okay. I don't want to make any promises that I definitely won't keep.
Got our hopes up for a second there.
Yeah, maybe we can reach out to Dom and he'll record it himself for us.
Yeah.
But right now I'm 0 for 1 on people answering me from mole contestants. So there's still time. Never. There's still time. I'm not. So after this, we kind of like weave in and out of the different groups and who's doing what. So here's how I would like to approach it, because this is how I wrote my notes and it's easier to scroll this way. Let's go group by group and talk about what happened. Cool. So the first group that I have is Pranav's group, which is the underwater one. And he takes the map. So they have their bag. They are heading to the water. And as they're going towards the water, when they open the bag, they find that they have a red envelope in their bag, and they can get a clue for $2,500 if they give up that money.
Which is half of the value of what's in the crate.
Correct. So their group finds the water pretty successfully. They didn't really have any mapping.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they got lost at all.
No, which, I mean, is good because we'll see another group struggle with that. But here's where I felt bad. These people have to go in the water, like, in their clothes. Like, Casey's in there in her jeans. I couldn't stand back in the day when, like, I mean, given they're kind of back in fashion, but I'm a millennial and I do not need to wear what Gen Z is wearing. And, like, the flare jeans, the bottoms would get wet. And especially because I'm short as fuck. So my pants were always long. And so the bottoms would always get wet because, like, I couldn't find pants that fit my short little legs. That shit's annoying. I can't imagine going fully in a fucking river and being just your jeans submerged in water.
Okay, so did she not, like, roll the jeans up? I thought.
No, like, she was in there.
Oh, well, props to her for being able to.
You couldn't roll your jeans up that high. She was in there, like, at least knee length. So.
Yeah, props to her for dealing with wet denim.
I think that alone deserved some extra money in the pot, but
true,
it's fine.
Maybe we could do that retroactively.
So, yeah, Casey, we reviewed the tapes, and based for your trials and tribulations, here's an extra $1,000.
That would be nice.
So they start searching the water. They have no real idea of where this thing is, and this is where we start to get a little bit of tension within this group.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, Greg. To me, Greg gets like hyper focused on searching one area
Mm-hmm.
for this box, and he is pissing people off.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a big, I don't want to call it a pond, like it was like a small
It was a
lake,
river.
right? It was a river.
No,
Okay.
it's because it was running. So like
True.
it was.
Okay.
I would say it's a river, a stream to river, a big stream, little river would probably be where I would go
Yeah, I think
in my
that's more
expert
fitting.
wilderness opinion, which is
Yeah, my
not.
hydrology, experience is really showing here. But yeah, but it wasn't like a very small like place to look where you could sort of like systematically move your way through with ensuring that you had enough time to find the case and get back. So it was definitely interesting that we see Greg just sort of fixated on this one spot and not searching, however many feet either to the left or right of him when it's just as likely for the case to be there.
Yeah, something that was interesting to me was Greg being very much like, no, I want to make sure I check this area. I want to be 100% confident. To me, you could see the water wasn't so dirty that you couldn't see through it. That like, I didn't think that it was a big deal to like kind of go quickly through it. To me, it was clear enough where like, oh, that looks like it doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
And if anything, it would be like more hidden, which it ended up being hidden under some trees that they
like a log
like
or
purposefully
something.
put there. Yeah. And so the area he wanted to search was like wide open. I'm like, bro, are you trying to be the mole? I don't like, it seems like you're trying too hard here.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, it is
Greg,
also like a valid strategy where we see people like intentionally do suspicious things in order to sort of bring suspicion onto themselves, despite not being the mole. So it could be one of those instances where Greg is like, okay, this is a perfect time to draw some attention to me. Let's have some fun with it.
Which he doesn't say that's what he was doing, but
true.
I would give him more credit if that's what he was trying to do. I just don't know if that was it. But after this, we get Greg being like, let's just open the hit. Like, we don't have a ton of time. We need to find a thing. And Nav is like, no, we're not giving up this money. Then Jacob's like, I don't know, let's open it. Casey agrees. So and the hint is not even to the location of this cargo.
I will say that the hint did seem a little helpful because I'm not sure, because the hint basically says, okay, once you find the box has a drawer with a crowbar, pry bar. What is it?
Yeah, crowbar.
A crowbar in it, and you have to use a crowbar in order to open the box and retrieve the case. Like, to me, that would have been a helpful hint, especially because if you didn't know that it was there, I'm not sure how noticeable it would have been otherwise. But yeah, it was more funny to me than anything that the hint was something that none of them expected it to be.
Yeah. And they'd said like the hint was helpful once we found the box, just we want the hint to help us find the box. But they did. And here's where I got a little defensive of Casey, because Casey's like, hey, is that red? And then Greg's like, oh, yeah, that must be it. I found it, everybody. I found it. I'm like, Greg, shut up. Casey hadn't said, is that red? You wouldn't have. Greg just got on my nerves very quickly this episode. I'm not a fan. Maybe, again, hoping to love him, but I feel like he took credit for finding it, one, unnecessarily, because even in his confession, he's like, I needed that. I needed to find that.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I think you just yelled it louder. Like Casey found it, but you took credit. But Casey didn't argue it, which
she didn't push back. I mean, what is the worth in pushing back in that situation?
Prove Greg wrong.
I mean, that is a valid objective. I'll concede to that.
Fuck the patriarchy. That's what it is. So, did capital letters bit and to take the woman's success, but so they end up getting the cargo, bringing it back. They get back to the plane on time. Good job, underwater group. You did it.
You did well.
Any mole-ish behavior that we need to call out from that besides anything we've talked about?
Nothing else besides what we talked about really stuck out to
Okay.
me. I think, well, we didn't touch on the sort of like Greg versus Pranav sort of, I wouldn't call it like an argument, but there was a moment where the group was deciding whether or not to actually open the hint. Pranav was the only person against it. I wouldn't necessarily call it mole-ish behavior, but I mean, anything that sticks out from the group is something that will call yourself to attention. So maybe it's something that was intentional, and Pranav was like, okay, this hint will give too much away, but I'm more leaning towards the opinion of Pranav just wanted to win as much money as possible.
Yeah, I do think there's some interesting strategies we see through the first 2 episodes of how money, also people's opinions on what is mole-ish behavior versus what isn't mole-ish behavior. And we could talk, especially in the second episode, the first mention, because I was a little confused, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
I definitely have questions. The next group we have that we're going to talk about, we'll talk about another successful group. Let's talk about the up in the tree group, right? So Dom took the map and they kind of got a little lost.
They did for a little bit.
Nothing major. But Will, who was like, what's a map? I use an iPhone. Which, like, actually, Will, like, I get it. Will takes it and like puts them back on the right path. And they also find that there's a clue for a $2,500 cost once they get to where the cargo is up in the tree. And this is where I didn't realize that Avery was a professional climber until she gave a whole beginner's lesson on climbing. She's like, normally I just climb like freely, like with no ropes and stuff. But I think there might have been someone behind a camera being like, you cannot just climb the tree, Avery. Like, you need put the helmet on, strap yourself in. I get that you do this at home. It's kind of like when you're the babysitter and you're like, Mom always lets me do this. Like, I don't give a fuck, because if you die I watch, I have to tell your mom.
Exactly.
That's
I also learned
like.
what belay means today.
Oh yeah. I unfortunately dated the adventure director at my summer camp for a few years, and so I knew what it was, but again, unfortunately, no, due to some poor life decisions. But back to the mole. So Avery explains, like, listen, you do this to belay me, pull me up, and Avery gets up there pretty easily, but she's too far away from the actual cargo on the tree. Kasai? Nope.
Kasi.
Tell me your name. Kasi. How the fuck? Kasi.
We'll get there. We'll get there. It's only been 2 episodes. We'll get there.
Kasi. Casey? Kasi. Jesus. Kasi then gets pulled up. Oh, no. Before this, Kasi has the idea of, like, can you kind of hold on and then, like, let loose like a swing almost and pendulum your way back and forth, which, again, I thought was
a
pretty
smart idea.
To me, it kind of seemed like the men just stood there and were like, we're making sure you don't fall. We're the rocks of the belay. And the women were like, we'll take care of this.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really see Will or Dom do much besides just, like, stand there and make sure that Avery or Kasi don't, like, slip and fall. Which, I mean, I guess that's worth something, but, you know, letting the women show you up like that. I mean, maybe they're like super feminist. Well, who knows?
What? I mean, they are a budding bromance, so
they are Iron Man and Thor, apparently.
Right. So Avery ends up getting a hold of the cargo in this, and there's a knot tied on top, and she's struggling to get the knot on. So that's Kasi. Look who did it on the first try.
Good job.
Kasi gets propelled up. Slow and steady wins the race. I'm a tortoise in this story of life. So Kasi comes up and she is able to help Avery untie the knot, get the cargo out. The team returns, and they also have their prize.
Yep.
All $5,000 because they didn't use
They didn't open the hint. There was a moment where Will and Dom sort of molded over whether or not they should, because for a moment Avery was struggling to actually just get herself to the bag, but where would a hint help in that case anyways?
Yeah, I doubt the hint would have been about
like how to untie a
how
knot.
to
Like
act. Yeah. My hint for untying knots, which also came from the summer camp director who I replaced, he said, just be patient. So I would have loved to open the hint and it just said, just be patient.
I feel like use your teeth might be better advice than that even.
I consider myself, like, if I were to go on Survivor, my strengths, and I guess on my strengths for other people with my ability to untie knots. I recently had to untie like 7 balloons that their strings that were together. Like I'm good at untying knots, and I've never used my teeth to untie a knot. So, but I have used patience. Where you just gotta follow the string. It's like a mini maze almost. But
I can see that. I see patience is something that I lack, so knots aren't my strong suit.
When you teach high school kids math for 11 years, you almost unwillingly develop patience. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I always had this in me, but it grew deep inside this ice box where my heart used to be, you know? So but the team's successful. They bring back $5,000. So we've got $5,000 from the tree team. We've got $2,500 from the underwater team. And then we go to the underground team. And Joy, the pilot, in case you didn't know, she's like, they're going to expect me to take this map and navigate them because I'm a pilot and I can do this because I'm a pilot. To which I feel like Joy put a lot of pressure on herself here.
I think she did. I think she eventually just like cracked under the pressure because this is your first time meeting these people. Joy didn't know who these people were like 20 minutes ago before this task. B, you're dropped off in a very foreign location. I doubt that Joy has ever been in the rainforest of Australia despite being a pilot. C, you have 3 of these people watching over you and like inherently suspicious of you because of the nature of the environment that they're in. So I feel like ultimately Joy did have the skills to navigate her group to where they needed to go, but I guess she just psyched herself out of it or something.
Yeah, I was giving Joy the benefit of the doubt throughout this first mission because to me, I mean, like, I've never been a pilot. I've never been in pilot school. However, I just have this weird feeling that pilots don't really use paper maps that often. If you're a pilot in the chat, let me know.
Yeah.
Like I could be wrong.
Because it was like a paper map. I don't think pilots are like spending their time looking down at a paper map. I mean, I don't know how piloting works. I don't know why I'm talking on this. Are pilots just like, do pilots just have like a paper map sitting next to them? Is that what the other guy is for? Is that also a pilot?
Other guy, the co-pilot?
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know. I just have a weird feeling that it was Joy who made this connection for everybody. But like, because I'm a pilot, I should be good with maps. Where like, if she hadn't said anything, I don't think anyone been like, okay, well, you're a pilot, so here you go, navigate us. Like, I don't.
My immediate reaction wouldn't
think
be to
that they're
like
related.
force navigational duties to a pilot. I mean, the logic makes sense, but not unless it's like very clearly presented to you, I feel like.
Also, they like navigate in the sky. That's totally different than the ground.
I feel like you see it too, that like this sense of scale is thrown off.
Yeah.
Like, in the sky versus on land.
Okay, so we have in that group Samara, who is a psychology student, so maybe she's not the biggest map person. We have Sandy, the sales manager, so unless she sells atlases, then like, okay, maybe she's out too. And then Osei, the real estate broker, aka artist actor. So I don't. They might just been doomed from their grouping. Like
Probably. It does kind of feel like the people in the trees team sort of sorted themselves there, the people in the water team sort of sorted themselves there, and then the people in the underground team sort of just like happened to be there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's sum this up quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Osei says Joy's supposed to be their Dora the Explorer, and that the pilot can't pilot the group to where they need to be. Needless to say, they did not make it to where they needed to go.
No,
they didn't
they
even
didn't.
make it there to even try to get this this cargo from underground.
And the show makes it look like they just made a wrong turn, and that just doomed them totally.
And that could be true, or they could have just
been
very awful at it. Yeah. So do you think there's mole-ish behavior in this group, or do you think that is just a series of unfortunate events?
Okay, so I have two things. One, I mean, Joy being enabled to navigate the group is inherently suspicious. I don't think people are wrong to place suspicion on Joy for that. But I do think Joy gets scapegoated here, and that is a really good strategy for the mole. Like, if there is someone else that is more easy to place blame on, you should always do it, in my opinion. So it could be that Samara or Sandy or Osei are the mole, and they just found it easier to blame Joy for messing the group up. Who's to say?
No, absolutely. I could see it going both ways. It was a little suspicious to me that the two people that I thought could be the mole, just based off of their lack of introductions, are both in the same group, and I'm like,
also true.
Great, now I know who is shadier. So let's put it this way: if you say that the mole comes from this group, I don't think I would be surprised in the slightest. At all, actually. Like, no. I don't think I would be surprised at all if episode 10 we come to find out that either Sandy, Samara, or Joy are the mole, not Osei, for reasons we'll discuss soon.
Yeah, but very soon.
Yes. So they get back and they start getting interrogated almost immediately. And like, what? Well, you didn't even get there. And then this conversation didn't even cross my mind as I'm watching. Someone's like, well, did you try the clue? And they're like,
clue? What clue?
Clue. And they're like, in the bag, the bag that I'm holding.
There was a clue in here?
Opened the bag, to which maybe because the way that it was shown in the show, like, groups didn't open their bag until they got to their cargo, the other two groups. So I was thinking like, oh, maybe they couldn't open the bag until they got to where they needed to, like, until they saw the cargo or whatever. But then at the same time, their group wouldn't have even been able to see the cargo because it was buried underground. Like, there's no finding their cargo to then open the bag.
That's true.
So
yeah.
I'm like, oh, they are just doofuses for not opening the bag, which, again, behavior.
Yeah, and it turns out that their clue practically tells them where their cargo is.
Yeah, except I think it was Joy. It's like, well, these holes, these like mines weren't even supposed to find this, to which I guess they didn't want to completely give it away. But at the same time, if you see those big ass holes in the ground, you're probably going to be like, oh, yeah. That group was shady. That's what I have to sum this up with. They're currently my top 3 in this moment for mole. My mind might change as we talk about episode 2, but Samara, Sandy, and Joy are my top 3 moles right now. Maybe they're all the mole. Maybe it's a mole gang.
Maybe the moles.
What is a group of moles called?
Pack is too simple. Like an
What
alliance of
is a
moles,
group?
maybe.
Oh, you are not going to guess this.
Oh man, can I get a
But I
hint?
wonder if this would be okay. Yes. The hint is this word is one of two words in a yearly holiday.
One of
If you
two
want a
words.
second hint, I
Will
will
it
give
cost
you the month.
me? Will it cost me $250
$2,500. Yeah, I'm gonna put the Venmo request in right now.
Oh man. Okay, no, I couldn't tell you.
Here's your second hint in
Okay.
September.
In September, holiday in September. There's holidays in September is
Oh
literally
my
my first
God.
thought.
Oh
am I
my
just
God.
am I
Yes,
just
like
like being
everyone gets it off. It is a bank holiday.
a big holiday in September?
Yeah, it's the first Monday of September.
Oh, Labor Day. There
Yes.
we
So
go.
it's
A
a
labor of
labor, but it's
moles.
spelled Labour. A group of moles is a labor.
So
So
like,
there
are
is your
moles not
animal fact
American
for
or
the day.
something?
Yeah, it's the Canadian spelling. I mean, the show did originate in Europe, so there
That's
we are.
true. Yeah.
All right, we've got everybody back at the plane. We say that, or we see that Dom was like, I was ready to be basically in a relationship with Ose. Like he was my boy, but we're
Hmm.
done. Will is now my
My
partner,
angry best
my one
friend.
true pair. Yeah,
That
OTP,
one meme.
OTP. And so I can't remember why I wrote this. All I wrote was Greg sucks in capital letters. These people can't even tie their shoes. It must have been the comment. He made the comment like,
Greg
these
made
people
his
can't even
comment.
tie
Yeah.
their shoes. I was like, buddy,
Yeah, that was a
where is
little
this arrogance coming from?
like
What
I
have you
like
done?
I've pretty much charted all of this up from Greg, at least charted all of it up to just like he's playing up the character he's assuming that he was
Yeah.
cast as, which makes sense. Like we don't really see a lot of like arrogance in this way from any of the other people on the cast. Um, so yeah, I mean, to me, Greg has just been like a likable villain so far.
He's likable?
To
To
a
each
degree,
their own, JD. To
yeah,
each their
an
own.
acquired taste maybe.
Again, I'm hoping that my opinions turn, but I mean, in real life, like my biggest struggle is the person who thinks they're the smartest person in the room. And
Mhm.
so Greg has a lot of that vibe. And
Greg
so
does
it's
have that
just
vibe, yeah.
yeah. And so to me, that's like an initial turn off because I just am like, I don't think I'm smarter than you, but I also am self aware enough to know I'm not the
Yeah,
smartest person in the
like
room. And you don't have that self awareness to me says a lot about you as a person.
it says something to just automatically make that assumption anywhere you go that you are just the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, like these people can't tie their shoes. Okay, first of all, clearly they can. They have laces. Like, I don't think production did it for them. Second, just be a little bit more like humble. That's all. That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking, Greg.
a little humility.
So it was at this point when, before they like settle down and have their little fireside chat, that I wrote a question down, which was soon answered. But I remembered Alex saying, and you have to protect the cargo overnight.
Hmm.
And this is, I wrote down, like, what do they have to protect the cargo from? Like, what is going to go on here? Are,
I mean, they are
I
in
don't know.
Australia. There are some freaky creatures in Australia.
Okay, so one, that thought did cross my mind.
Hmm.
But then two, I don't know if you are old enough to have watched this show, but again, like, YouTube's a weird place where you can watch any show at this point. And Legends of the Hidden Temple,
Yep. Hmm.
when the temple guards will like pop out and like steal
Production
your
just
half
planted
pendant
temple
or whatever.
guards.
And so like I'm not even joking, JD. I'm thinking, I'm like, are temple guards gonna pop out of here? Like what who are they protecting it from? Because then I'm like, there's no way that the mole is gonna get up middle of the night and eel shit. Like on day one, they're tasking the mole with that. Like that is okay.
It's
Okay. But I
bold
had that
for sure.
question. So those are my three thoughts at that point before we got to the fireside chat. So
Mhm.
I just want to put it out there. Like, did you consider that at all before it became nighttime?
I think I might have missed where Alex specified that the crates needed to be protected overnight because
Mm-hmm.
I immediately just thought like once the task was done, they were just going to start moving to a new location. Clearly not. Um, so yeah, that totally slipped my radar. Um, and it wasn't until like the fireside chat where I figured out, oh, they're here overnight.
Mm-hmm. So at their chat, we find out that Dom's biggest fear is owls.
Hmm. I
What's a
mean,
pack of owls called?
oh man, I feel like I know the answer to this one. Um,
I have a guess before I look. I won't lie. Oh, I'm wrong.
well, if you're wrong, I'm probably wrong because the only thing I could think of right now is like a murder of crows,
So I was thinking of flock,
a
which
flock.
it's not
Well, I
it.
mean, like I feel like you
Do
could
you want?
call any group of birds a flock, right?
Well, that's why I thought it was a safe answer. But this isn't it. Do you want a hint? I think you'll be
Give
able
me
to
a
guess
hint.
this one easier. It is a word to describe. I could actually be wrong. I might feel stupid by saying this, but
Mhm.
oh. Hold on. Let me see if my hint is right. A word to um, okay, yeah, I wasn't wrong. Okay, good. I wasn't gonna look dumb live on YouTube. It is a word to describe the government of the United Kingdom.
A parliament of owls.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I
I
wouldn't
had
have
to
guessed
look. Some
that.
like, is that right? I'm not good at like civics, so
Me neither.
at
Me
least like
neither,
especially
honestly.
foreign countries civics. I'm very ethnocentric in my political just like my brain can only absorb so much. And so
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna look dumb if I don't look this up. But yeah, Parliament of Owls. Next week,
Look at me go.
or not next week, but next episode, what pack of animals are we gonna talk about then? So so I just thought it was funny that he's just like, yeah, owls, absolutely. And someone's like, have you ever seen an owl running? And he's like, yeah, in my dreams. But
That wasn't the answer I was expecting either, because like there's like videos on the internet of owls running, and like that is a scary sight to
I don't know if
some.
I've ever seen an owl running, but I've heard of owls like murdering people.
Oh,
So
that I haven't heard of.
yeah, there was this whole like mystery of this like this owl basically like got the head of, not like took the head off obviously, but like attacked someone's head, and they thought it was like the husband that killed her, but it was actually the owl. And like owls also steal small dogs, which is why I'll always have a
Mm,
sizable dog because we'll never get taken by an owl.
too big for an
Or a
owl.
parliament of owls. Yeah. There'll need to be a parliament to steal my dog.
Yeah, a large
um
parliament.
so yeah, I just thought that was funny. Like I thought it was also interesting that they included that part. Like why? But who knows?
Who knows?
So
Maybe there's a task
um
that has something to do with owls later on.
maybe it's like fear factor where
Yeah.
like why would you tell them your actual fears? I always said I would tell Fear Factor that my two biggest fears are like puppies and cheese fries. Like, please don't put me in a
Oh
room with puppies and
no!
cheese
Don't put a plate
fries.
of cheese fries in front of me.
No, don't. I will cry tears of joy. Not the pilot. So the next morning, the people wake up and the big piece of cargo is missing. The
Mhm.
$5,000
The
piece of cargo is
$5,000
missing.
cargo is missing.
And at this point, I was like, these shisty people. I knew something was up.
It was
Something
a
was going to
temple
happen.
guard.
Yeah, it was those temple guards. You needed some half pendants to scare them away. You should have put
Right.
together the Shrine of the Silver Monkey faster. But so right away, Will is like, here's who I know who it wasn't. It wasn't me. But I thought he kind of gave himself up because he's like, I was like only asleep for like 30 minutes. So at that point, I'd be like, yeah, you were
Yeah.
stealing the cargo the other not 30 minutes. Like, But Will's like, it wasn't this person, it wasn't this person, it wasn't this person, it wasn't this person, because they were sleeping like next to me. So
Right.
I would have noticed if it was them. And everyone's like, sir, yes, sir. Okay, except Joy. Joy's like, shut up, Will. You're a mole.
Pretty much. I feel like that was near verbatim to what Joy said.
Yeah. She said, I'm a pilot. Shut up, Will. Like, that was it. So they go searching for it. They like break up into pairs, and at this point, Will and Dom are like, I only trust you, I only trust you. Like, they've basically have an alliance going on. And they're searching, they find nothing, they don't know where the cargo is. They get picked up in helicopters, which is pretty cool. And they get brought to this like beautiful house.
Yeah.
I would stay in that Airbnb for a night.
For only a night?
I mean, they only stayed for what seemed like a night, so
yeah,
I was just giving myself mole treatment.
I mean, I have down in my notes, when did this turn into the challenge? Because like this is like challenge level housing. Like it was unreal.
I did think that. I'm like, oh, this seems like a challenge house. Like, I would not be surprised if you had like oh god, I'm forgetting.
It was Johnny Bananas that stole the cargo. Duh.
I was thinking of like shoot, MB, their corporation name that like makes the challenge.
Murray Bunham, right?
Yeah, I could not. Melissa from Real World like texted us that name today, and I'm seeing it in my brain and could not pronounce it. But I mean, I can't even say. Shit, hold on, Cassie's
Yep,
name,
there
right?
you go.
Casey Cassie. Like it took me some brain power to say her name right. So anyway, like I'm expecting Barnum and Bailey, whoever it is that makes the challenge, to be like, yo, where'd you get that house? Australia isn't the worst place to have a challenge. Like,
have they been to Australia?
Oh gosh.
I feel like it's always like
Thailand right now, so yeah. They were in Argentina recently. I don't know.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, they're all over. I wouldn't rule out Australia. I think they did go to Australia once. We'll look it up later. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I could see them being like, yo, swing us that Airbnb link. That looks sick. But this is where we get Iron Man and Thor nicknames as well. And then we get into the mission debrief. So Alex shows up and she's like, so what happened? And they explain like the high up team came back with $5,000, the underwater team came back with $2,500, and the underground team came back with their map in a closed bag that they didn't even open. Joy made a comment where she's like, I don't think the map was correct. Did you hear that?
I think I did. I didn't write it down, but I do remember hearing something along those lines.
I was shocked by that statement. Like, you really think that they're giving you a wrong map, Joy? I don't know. Joy, you're making it hard for people. So Alex is like, so what happened to the cargo? And they said, we didn't protect it. Like, we didn't listen to your directions. And Alex is like, well, guess what? We have footage of who stole the cargo. And right away, I'm like, there's no way that they're giving up the mole this early.
Yeah.
Like, so it could have been the mole who stole it. But my thick skull did not think like, oh, there was a little like mini challenge going on here. Did you think that once they said that?
No, I mean, I thought
it was Johnny Bananas.
Yeah, I obviously thought it was Johnny Bananas, but I also thought the point of filming it and then exposing that footage meant that whoever it was wasn't the mole. Like, my brain kind of did the opposite of what I feel like most people would think. Just because like that was just like too obvious of a move. And also I feel like the mole would know that they were being filmed while stealing this crate. So yeah, my mind went to, okay, whoever's being exposed right now isn't the mole, which isn't necessarily true, but whoever stole it isn't like a clear indication. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just like, what is this? So here's kind of what I was expecting. I was expecting her to be like, for the low cost of $2,500, you can see this film. And the group being like, yes or no,
Mhm.
because then Will would have had to argue, because he knew, okay, we're actually going to double the money. Like, trust me, we don't need to see it. And
Mhm.
then, so like, it puts Will almost like on alert again. I
Mhm.
would have loved that
That
personally,
would have been
but
good. But I also like
um,
how I like the simplicity of just having it as a secret chat.
yes. So next season, mole producers,
Yeah, write this down.
if I'm not on the cast, you can use that one, because otherwise I'll be thinking it already.
Yeah,
That one's for free. The next one I'm charging.
$2,500.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the low cost, literally, like just a couple months rent. That's all I'm
Yeah.
asking for. So we get the video, and we have lots of accusations being thrown around, which was kind of funny.
Mhm.
Where the one that stood out to me the most was Osei being like, the mole stole the case, aka Joy. Joy stole.
Mhm.
I just started laughing, like, but you could tell very quickly that like that was not any of the women. That it
Mhm.
narrowed it down quickly to the men, and then they show that it was Will. And as this is happening, Will's like, have you ever not trusted me, Dom? Dom, like, come
Yeah, he's
on, man,
speaking
just
directly to
trust
Dom in this
me.
moment. Like, there
Yeah, like
isn't 10
his,
other people who are also equally as suspicious of him in that moment. Well, except for Osai, who is still convinced it's Joy for some reason.
yeah. And Dom is like, what, man? Like, I trusted you. I thought we were getting like a second breakup for Dom in
I
one episode. It was like
know.
worse than an episode of
Dom
The
really got
Bachelor
put
for
through it this
him.
episode.
Yeah, his emotions through the ringer.
Yep.
And so Dom's brokenhearted. We see that it's Will. But then what we see is that there is a note on the cargo in the plane that said, for your eyes only, you have a secret mission. Tonight, if you steal one of the cases, it doubles the money. If you get caught, all the money gets taken from the
Mm-hmm.
pot. So Will completed the challenge by taking the $5,000 case, and it wasn't caught. Simply because of how they were sleeping. Like, how do you just say like you're going to the bathroom?
I guess so. I mean, maybe the people around Will were asleep and he just like slip away unnoticed. But yeah, I mean, besides saying that you're going to go to the bathroom, I mean, well, no, he couldn't just like tell people what he was doing either, because that would also jeopardize everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so maybe he
I,
just went on like a quick little 30-minute potty break or something.
maybe, but he didn't get caught. Everyone seems excited about this, except Sarah and Joy are like, I
Mhm.
don't know. This is a little sketchy.
Yeah, and I think that's the right mindset to have. Like, doing something so heroic, as Joy puts it, doesn't immediately absolve you from any suspicion. It just means you earned money for the group, which is what most people are doing.
Right. And especially if you're the one who sees it, like you don't know if someone like seeing it over your shoulder or something.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I get it. So I think even if you are the mole, I don't know. If I was the mole, I might maybe have done the $2,500 one. And
Yeah,
I
there was
don't know.
also a
I don't
big
know.
risk to go for the 5K instead of the 2,500. Because if you
Yeah.
did get caught, that's 5K gone versus 2K or 2.5.
Right. And so here's a question I have for you,
Mhm.
that we've gone through the whole first mission now, including the extra little mini mission that Will had to go through. If you're the mole in the first mission, are you trying to be the mole, or are you trying to lay low and just be as successful for the group as possible?
I mean, I think like playing the long game, you should just lay low. Um, I mean, there is some merit to drawing suspicion onto yourself immediately, but I feel like if I'm going to put myself in the mole position, I think it would make more sense to lay low, because the sooner you draw suspicion, the longer it's going to last.
Mm-hmm.
In my head at least. Like, until there is something that might like not necessarily prove but point more fingers towards someone else, like I won't be able to shake suspicion off. And for it to be the first mission and take that risk, I'm not sure it's entirely worth it.
Yeah, I think I would take a similar approach in that, like, it's a long game. I do not need all the fingers at me in round one. And
Exactly.
that's a lot. So after this, all of our players get dressed up. We have a nice little cocktail hour.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know, let's get
really
a little
fancy
boozy
group.
before we take a quiz, which I mean, I have only done a few assignments in my career drunk. I don't think I would want my first quiz on a game show to be, but it didn't seem like anybody was,
Yeah.
overserved
No
or
one was,
anything.
yeah.
But we had our little cocktail hour. Then we're gonna give out the roses. Just kidding. So,
Wrong show. I mean, you could be convinced that this was The Bachelor between Dom and the
yeah,
house.
I mean, Dom is maybe the Bachelor.
Who
So
knows?
the only like real strategy we heard, I thought, was Pranav, who was like, "I'm gonna play the majority," which to me makes sense in the first round because I feel like if you go for broke and you are targeting one person, that is how you get yourself out. Because
Yeah.
if you're wrong, you're like wrong.
I mean, that's sort of what the meta has become of the mole. Like, you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. Like, even like 5-6 rounds into the game, you're splitting answers between like 2 or 3 different people. So I think Pranav has the right approach. And I wouldn't be shocked if most, if not everyone, took a similar approach to that.
Yeah, well, that's where I think the editors are trying to lead us in a different way. I think that we saw a lot from Osei be like, it's Joy. It's Joy. Joy is the mole. And we leave episode 1 on the cliffhanger of 3 people being left that could be eliminated, which would be Will, Joy, and Osei. So let's just swing straight into episode 2.
Yeah, let's go right
in. With those 3 left, which by the way, we can give you how they're doing like the elimination. Alex says someone's name. They have what looks like an iPhone in front of them. And then they click their name on the screen, and then their screen either turns green or red. So we go through everybody except for those 3 in the first episode. Go to the second episode, it's those 3 left. First, we get Joy. She's safe. So we're between Osei and Will, and Osei gets eliminated.
Yep.
So we're left to believe that Osei went hard in the paint for Joy on his quiz, based off of at least his confessionals. Do you think he did that, or do you think he tried to play the majority and just didn't do it the best?
See, like, literally the first thing I have in my notes for episode 2 is Osei eliminated equals clears Joy ? Because I'm still unsure. Like, I could see both worlds being true. Like, obviously not at the same time, but I can see either of them being what actually happened. If I had to say right now, I do think Osei maybe put a majority of his answers on Joy and maybe split the rest. But yeah, I mean, if we are to just believe the edit for what it's giving us, I mean, it's pretty clear that Osei was pretty sure it was Joy and clearly was wrong.
Yeah, some of those questions though were like pretty.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Detailed.
Like personal.
Yeah, like, is the mole married? I mean, I think because they were all taking the quiz in the same room, correct? They're all sitting in that circle, right?
Yeah.
Because there was a question about like what color shoes is the mole wearing tonight?
Like what attire was the mole wearing? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, like some of those you could like, if the mole's sitting next to you, you could like look and are they allowed to look their side and like see what they're wearing? But then others.
Yeah, I feel like
I mean, like, I don't know.
Alex like proctoring the quiz.
Alex is like, keep your head straight. I will call home and tell your mom you were cheating. Getting a 0. Listen, I've been there, Alex. It's not fun to have that conversation. So I don't know if you're allowed to like look side to side or whatever, but some of them are things that you're gonna have to remember, or even you might not even remember because like, did you have the conversation of, is the mole married? The mole could have lied to you about being married. You don't know. Like,
exactly.
A lot of people come on these shows pretending to be single even if they aren't, because they think like flirting might help them in a way. So I could see it, like, that's the thing. Part of me is like, okay, so does this just mean Joy the pilot sucks at maps and Osei cleared Joy's name? Or are we just being like led to believe that? Because I could also see Osei like maybe not being the most detail oriented person. The dude didn't even think to open the bag that he carried for an hour.
Okay, so thinking about it a little more, if Joy was the mole, I feel like we wouldn't be told that Osei was like so suspicious of Joy and then he gets eliminated. Because how does that like reveal go down? Like we it's revealed that Joy is the mole, and then my immediate question would be, why did Osei get eliminated?
It's because he's so bad at taking the quiz. Or it could be because the other thing is, let's say there's 10 questions and Osei gets 2 right, and I don't know, let's throw Will out there because he was the other person at the end, not saying that like it was equivalent or whatever. And Will gets 2 right, but Will finishes faster, Osei goes home.
That's also true.
So
like, and also like you said, Osei isn't the most, or he doesn't seem to be from the show the most detailed oriented person. So for a lot of those questions where you would have to like ask the person to know the answer to them, maybe he just didn't know enough about Joy.
So I'm not eliminating Joy yet because one, they were on a plane in the first episode, and that is the biggest clue, literally and figuratively, because Joy is a pilot. But again, like, it's almost in a way like good that Osei got. No offense, Osei, we want you to come on. I DM'd you, respond to me. Got eliminated because he was so set on Joy that like, what if Joy is at the end, and then it's just like, okay, so if you were so set on Joy, like what happened? He just bombed the quiz, you know? So I'm not sure. She's still on my list because Joy does some sus as fuck things.
She does, and does have. Yep, I agree, and we'll definitely
so
get
it's
to
like,
it.
I don't know what to believe here, but I did like Osei basically left in like the same car that I drive. Like it looks like a 2011 Nissan Rogue. Like we did not pull up the fancy vehicles here.
I mean, they spent all that budget on the house. Like, who can blame them?
True, it was a nice house. So, all right, we get the rest of the players. So there's 11 players left, split in cars, driving to the next mission. They flew somewhere, so I forget. I didn't even write down where they went. They're somewhere else in Australia.
Brisbane, Australia, I believe.
Brisbane. Okay. So we're in Brisbane, Australia. They are split up into 3 cars, and we have Avery and Pranav seeming to form a little bit of alliance. What do you think of that combo?
We didn't see a lot of interaction between the two of them, I don't think, in the first episode. So this was a little bit of a shock to me. But I do like we are seeing players like actively playing the game and not just playing the tasks and taking the quiz and having that be it. I do like there is like an exchange of information going on. I do like their strategy of trying to like split off and trying to collect as much information as possible. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this alliance goes, or to coin old mold lingo, coalition, so to speak.
I forgot about that. That's good. Yeah. I think like if I were to go into my only complaint about the first episode is that I would have liked to see a little bit more of the sharing of information between players, because I mean you had 3 different groups, so if not involved in what went down, I want to hear perspectives on it. And so to not see that, I wish we got to see a little bit more, as opposed to us like being invited to Dominic wedding, you know?
Yeah, I will say too that even after 2 episodes, it feels like the only like relationships that are happening, which clearly isn't true because just how people act, are Dom and Will and Pranav and Avery. We don't really see any sort of like intermingling besides that.
And that's interesting because if these people went and watched the original seasons of The Mole, that season, it was the two guys who were kind of like protecting who they both thought the mole was Catherine, and their little alliance, but really having core relationship of that and sharing information got them as far as they did. And then at the end, it was kind of like whoever takes the quiz best takes the quiz best. And so if they had gone back and watched prior seasons, like, I don't think it's dumb by any means to have this bromance or Avery and Pranav. I just am surprised that we're not seeing more of those kind of pairs kind of couple off in a way. So maybe we'll see more in the upcoming episodes because it still is a little early.
Yeah, I mean, there's 10 episodes. We're only barely into episode 2.
Mm-hmm. So they drive to the next mission and they're at a jail. And the group first, before finding out anything, has to decide amongst themselves who they trust most.
Kasi does something here that I really like, and she wants to put the people she's most suspicious of in those spots of most trustworthy to see how they respond. And I think that's a very valid strategy. Like put the mole's toes into the fire. Is that how the phrase goes, so to speak? Like,
sure, yeah.
Like make them sweat a little bit. Like have them in the spotlight, have them make a decision, see how things unfold from there. I really like that sort of train of thought from Kasi.
Yeah, I like that too. Absolutely. And we get a bit of like a discussion over who should be there. And someone says, well, what about Avery and Pranav? I don't know who said it.
I think it's Kasi who says it too.
Oh, interesting. And Jacob was like, those two? Like, he very openly questioned them as being trustworthy, which I thought was interesting.
It was funny.
I guess Jacob is not, and I guess Jacob has reasoning, at least with Pranav, because like, it's him, it's work with him. So he has a bit more judgment on Pranav than maybe some of the other players do. That was funny. You're just like, absolutely not.
Just shut it down immediately.
Yeah. It's getting some traction. And Casey gets well. Weird.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay. Sometimes this happens, live TV. It's a scary medium.
Anything can happen.
It does. And on this on Silent Podcast, it's StreamYard. Like if I do a speed test, my internet is fine. I get StreamYarded regularly. It is so annoying.
StreamYard tanks my computer's like everything. Like this is literally the only thing I have open right now.
Yeah, no, same. I like close everything else because StreamYard sucks. So anyway, but we're back. We're here. We made it.
We move.
Yes. So Dom gets traction. Oh, Carrie, you have been robot Carrie. Valencia, thank you for that heads up. I appreciate that. We've got Dom and Casey who get picked as being trustworthy. How do you feel about these two choices?
Something I forgot to sort of bring up with Casey in the first episode is I feel like she's in the spot where the audience sort of gets like handheld a little bit, where it's like, okay, Casey is very clearly not the mole. We're not going to give you anything concrete to do that, to sort of go off of, but I feel like we're sort of getting subliminally told that Casey is not the mole through like what she says and what through the rest of the cast has to say about her.
Yeah, at least from the first episode, although I think like we get something in the second episode that might make us change our minds, but she is concretely in like a nice spot. And I think also it helped that she was like insulated by men in her first mission. That
true.
I obviously support women making decisions and being in charge, but it's also very easy when it's 3 men and 1 woman to like take a back seat either forcibly or naturally. So
Mm-hmm.
I think she got like a little insulated in that first mission.
I agree. Yeah. And I mean, we don't forget that she, despite someone else taking credit for it, she's the one who finds the cargo.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it right then and there. So again,
Mm-hmm.
Greg, stop. So um so we have our 2 leaders. They are called the masterminds in this mission. And let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about this mission. This is I think we're 2 for 2 right now on good missions.
I
So
agree. I love this mission.
yeah, Jailbreak was cool. We basically had 3 identical setups where the masterminds split the group into teams of 3 teams of 3. And each person is locked in a jail cell. They have some stuff in their jail cell to help them escape. The teams have exactly an hour to escape. Basically, that's it. Like they have no
Yeah,
directions.
it's
Otherwise,
pretty
like use
simple.
what you got. Yeah, simple rules. It's a jail escape room essentially, and the masterminds have to stay outside and just hang out, chill, and be faced with some decisions from Alex. So
Right.
our 3 groups are the following. So we have Team 1 in Cell F, which is Jacob, Pranav, and Sandy. Any opinions you want to give on this group?
Um, the only thing that really stuck out to me is that this is the second time we're seeing Jacob and Pranav having to work together in a task.
Mm-hmm.
The first time is successful. We'll find out later that this time is also successful. So maybe there's something going on with the Jacob Pranav thing where, things just work really well.
And maybe that's a reason why Jacob was like, no, not Pranav. Maybe he actually trusts Pranav and wants to deflect off of him or deflect onto him so that people think it's him, but really he can like keep Pranav close.
That could be it too. Yeah.
Our next team, Team 2, is Will, Avery, and Samara. What do you think of Team 2 here?
This is still when we don't know a ton about Samara and sort of like her approach to the game. So I was more interested more than anything to seeing like just how this team would interact with each other. Because I feel like we got a good
Mm-hmm.
grasp of how Avery wanted to approach the game. We got a good grasp of how Will wanted to approach the game. But I feel like Samara was the wild card here. So I wasn't really
Yeah.
leaving it up to anything where I was expecting them to fail or expecting them to succeed. We already know that Will is a kind of big personality, so it wasn't surprising that he ultimately like takes the lead when this group finally gets working. So yeah, I mean, long story short, Samara's a wild card, and I feel like that remains true throughout the rest of the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she has like peaks and valleys very quickly within this
Yeah,
episode. And then Team 3, while you were talking, I was trying to say her name in my head. Casey.
you got it.
No, I don't. I'm stuck again. Tell me.
Cassie.
Cassie, how the God damn it. Like
You're
this
like
isn't
this
even a
close
bit.
every time.
This is not a bit. This is me just being stupid. Like I need a post-it note. I need to write this down. Cassie. Shit. Cassie, Greg, and Joy are our 3rd team. And what do you think of this team as it gets assembled? Because Dom says he doesn't really trust Greg and Cassie.
I thought no, it's Greg and Joy that Dom says he doesn't.
Oh,
Trust.
really? I wrote
Yeah.
Cassie. Maybe because I just can't say her name and so I don't trust her.
Yeah, it was because
Let's change that.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like Dom has the right idea here in sort of putting all the people he can't trust in one group, just so that it's minimizing the amount of money being lost in the task. Because say you have Greg in one group, Joy in the other, that's double the money you're losing. I mean, granted, this task is all or nothing. Either all 3 groups escape or no one gets anything. But still, trying to minimize the damage, even though it doesn't super affect the outcome, I think it's the right idea. So I like where Dom's head was at there.
Yeah, and especially if like shady shit goes down in that group, then it's easier to be like someone from this group. So, like you said, all of them have to escape, and they'll get $10,000. And if that doesn't happen, then no money whatsoever.
Right.
So we put all 3 teams in their cells. The masterminds stay out. And again, I wrote my notes in like group order. So let's talk about it team by team here. Let's start with the team that escaped first, which was Jacob, Sandy, and
Pranav.
Yes. So Jacob is able to see a key outside of his cell.
And we'll talk about this more later, but he's the only one who's able to see that key that belongs to them.
That was exactly what I was just about to say. He is the outlier here because, like we mentioned, all 3 of these setups are identical. So Jacob is in his cell, and then in another jail building, someone else is in the exact same identical cell. The key is in the exact same identical place, right? So we are, or we have Jacob who's able to see his key, which I think makes it easier versus across the hallway is meant for, if I think you look at the right angle, the person across the hallway from you being able to see it. So Jacob knows that there has to be a way to get this key. He tries with a toothbrush. He has Sandy throw stuff at the key from her hole. She uses like everything in her room in addition to her shoe, which I thought was so funny. Like we got a Converse flying across the hallway, which didn't help. Jacob is tearing apart his room, literally, like tears apart the pillow. And finally, and this is where I was saying, like, oh, do professions matter? Jacob, like, firemans his way into this. He essentially takes the chessboard, ties the sheet, right?
The sheet from like the pillowcase,
Yeah, around the chessboard and like gets it through the bars that are above his door, able to swing it down and manages to hit the key close enough to him where he's able to pull that out.
Right.
So Jacob escapes from his room in a fashion that he was not meant to escape his room, which is interesting because, like we mentioned, you, me, friends in the group chat, Nate is in the chat right now. Nate said it as well. Shout out Nate, probably be guesting soon. That there's something about Jacob. Like there's just something about him that like there's this gut like Jacob and to me like, is it suspicious that he thought so outside the box, or is it like, oh, he can't be the mole because if he was the mole he would have known that the magnet would have been the way to do that.
Interesting. I didn't really think about that. I do think it's true that the mole, whether they were in that specific room or not, they would have known that the chess pieces were magnetic, not the board. And I think someone else points that out in another group.
It was Will who said it.
Yeah. Maybe he just did. Well, no, because he had to have at least seen the chess pieces because he uses the board to eventually like get the key close enough to where he can finally reach it. So yeah, this is an interesting thought that I didn't think of until this moment. And I'm wondering if it's
what I'm here for, JD.
Yeah, like we're here to think. We're here to talk mostly, truly. But we're also here to think.
I'm a little confused, and like Nate said now in the chat, like I feel like he would have worked less if he was the mole. So for him to do it in such a creative way, because going forward with this group, and we see it more with the other 2 groups, we think at least my opinion, JD, tell me if you think I'm wrong. The progression was supposed to be the magnet gets the key, because Alex says that clue later in the thing. And you get your key, you get yourself out. And then you go upstairs and you get out the person who is upstairs because they have pictures of people on their wall and there's numbers. And you have to go into those jail cell numbers in a Bible. You find a key, and then that person has a stool and a screwdriver in their room, to which you would bring back downstairs to the other cell, because they definitely put the shortest person from each team in
They
That
absolutely
I would have been in that one. I would have been the idiot, like trying to put everything on top of each other, jumping. Like I would have broken an ankle, a wrist in this challenge because I would have been jumping for that red key that was hanging up in the corner. But you're supposed to bring that stool down. You're supposed to put the stool through like either the hole in the door or the like slots
like
above
the
it.
great, yeah.
Give them the screw. Yeah, and they're supposed to put the stool together so they can reach this key. You're supposed to get out. So
Yeah. That's
that's
exactly
how the
right.
other
Like
two
that's
teams
what
do
it was
it.
supposed to go.
But Jacob's team is like, nah, we are thinking outside the box because then what happens is Jacob starts putting things into the cell across from him, which is Sandy, and
Sandy,
she piles stuff up so she's able to take that key down. So they did not do this in the way that the mole intended them, or like the TV
definitely
show the
not.
mole intended them to. They go upstairs, they figure out like, oh, here's a key in the Bible. They get Pranav out. Everybody escapes. They're the first team out.
Yep. And they do it with like what, like 30 minutes to spare still? Like they get out
Yeah,
there
they had
pretty
a lot of
fast.
time. Well, speaking of time,
Mm-hmm.
during this whole process, Alex is outside with the masterminds and she's like, I've got a proposition for you. Take away 10 minutes, but the teams don't find out and we'll double the money. And Dom is like, absolutely. You know how I roll.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Casey's a little more reserved. Would you have done that in that situation?
If I was the mole, I would have. Just because it gives less time for money to be earned. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think Dom I don't think Dom's the mole. I think what happens here is that he's a little too trusting of the rest of the group to get this done. Maybe he gets too blinded by the idea of the opportunity to double your money. Um, but yeah, I don't like if I were the mole, I would have done what Dom did, but I also don't think Dom is the mole in this moment. Um, I do think again, I feel like what Casey's reaction is makes sense for what we know about her and how she's playing the game. Like she wants to play it safe, so not taking the money and just making sure that there's $10,000 secured. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's valid to me.
Yeah, I didn't think there was necessarily a wrong decision here.
Yeah, I agree.
I do think that Dom is approaching this game from a way that I wouldn't, is the exact opposite of how I would approach it, though. In terms of especially how he thinks the mole would operate. But before we move on to that,
Mm-hmm.
I have to showcase Nate's comment real quick. Jacob is a person who gets out of an escape room through property damage alone. Like Jacob is the
Yeah,
reason
I
they
mean,
tell you
yeah.
like do not tear apart the ceiling. Like there's nothing hidden in this. Like do not touch. There's like the stickers for things you're not supposed to try and remove. Like
Mm-hmm. Don't
Jacob
ever
is
get
that
those.
person.
Yeah, I agree.
um, so to me, Dom has this viewpoint of the mole of like the mole is going for broke. The mole is trying to make the pot be zero. And to me, a good mole does not try to like completely 100% sabotage because you get caught. But if you can chip away,
Mm-hmm.
that chipping away adds up and you're able to also at the end be like, well, look at all the money I prevented you from winning. And to me, I think Dom is just like, no, the mole would absolutely want us to 100% lose. And like, yeah, I'm sure they do, but like, is that the best strategy to just go in and light the building on fire? I don't think so. But to me, I
Yeah,
think that's what Dom thinks is going to happen.
yeah, and I feel like more often than not, we see the mole work in extremely subtle ways. It's not until like you're very closely examining what every single person is doing in any given task where you're finally pointed out, like, okay, here how this task in particular was sabotaged by this mole. And it's usually only like one or two things that they do. It's not like a big like chain of events that happens. It's like um I can't think of a good example right now, but the mole works subtly. Like for instance, if Jacob were the mole and just didn't use the chessboard and just couldn't find anything otherwise to get the key under his door, like that to me would
Mm-hmm.
be indicative of a mole, not like actively sabotaging the group, but just doing one or two things to throw them off course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see some other players throughout the rest of this mission do things like that that you could be like, that's moly AF, or are you just like stuck?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of like a good place to be as a mole. Like, I tried everything, when
Yep.
really, if you're Joy, you're like doing push-ups in your jail cell, which
Yeah.
again kind of threw me off. But what do your thing, Joy. Like,
Yeah.
who am I to judge you? Except for the fact that I'm a podcast host and I'm supposed to judge you on what you're
Maybe she
doing
was
in
just
this show.
pumping herself up for a really big jump, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Your upper body is what helps your vertical
Yeah, you gotta
for
like
sure.
use your arms for like upward momentum. I see it.
I worked out wrong my whole entire life. All right, so our next team. Can you hear Nitro
I
digging the wood
can.
floor in the background? Nitro,
Going
hey,
at it.
it's so weird. Like, what are you accomplishing by digging a wood floor? Like, it's not moving. Like, I understand my bed. He'll like move the sheets when he digs, but
Hmm.
I just don't get when
He's
he does that.
actually
Like,
looking for that third cargo.
yeah, he
Yeah.
is. You know what, Nitro? I would pick you to be on my underground cargo
Yeah.
team for sure.
Nitro's a good digger.
All right. So our next team we'll talk about is another team that was more successful than the last team, which
Hmm.
was Will, Samara, and Avery. But this team had a little bit more issues
Yep.
than the third team. Valencia said third co-host alert. I gave JD the heads up.
Yep.
Like, Nitro's third co-host. He always makes his appearance. So there he is, digging for cargo in the background. So Will figures out that the chess pieces are magnetic, but the board isn't, which it should be a big clue. And Will is able to spot something down on the ground in front of his door, but he isn't 100% sure what it is. And he's like, "Hey, Samara, what is that?" And she's like, "That's a hair tie."
Yeah. How do you
Samara, you the mole.
How do you confuse a keychain for a hair tie? Like those are two completely different textures. Like the shape is similar, sure, but
Okay,
that's literally it, right? Like I don't
I
have
have a
long
few
hair, so
issues
I'm
here.
not experienced with hair ties, clearly.
I have a few issues here. First and foremost, if a hair tie is that big, you have to like swing that hair tie around a bunch of times your head. And like that, no one wants to do that. You want like 2 to 3 loops around at most, right? That's a big ass hair tie. Second, do hair ties come with tags on them that say sell 5 or whatever? Like mine never
Maybe
have,
that was like the
personally.
brand. Maybe.
Oh yeah, the big tag.
Yeah.
And like the way the key was, it, correct me if I'm wrong, the key was kind of like standing upright, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
For theirs, it was like weirdly
Like
oriented.
you could
So
definitely tell that there was something attached to the keychain itself.
yes, I just, in that moment, I'm like, oh, Samara, you might be the mole.
Yeah.
Or is she trying to get Will to think that she's a mole so that,
I mean,
I don't
if
know,
that's
man.
what her
It was
intention
moley.
was, it was definitely Molly. If her intention was to get Will to put suspicion on her, it worked. Because we see Will pretty much immediately after the task is over be like, Samara is number 1 on my mole suspect list.
I did absolutely love her reaction when Will was like, wait a second, that's a key. And she just goes in her confessional, shit.
Yeah.
That would have been me too. Like, oh no.
Because like that's either, I mean, okay, it's like very clearly embarrassment and a little bit of shame, but is it like, oh my god, I got caught shame, or oh my god, I'm so dumb shame? I feel like this is very much left up in the air.
I think I would rather have, oh my god, I got caught shame than, oh my god, I'm that dumb shame.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, because at least at that point you could hide behind the fact like, oh yeah, I meant to not see it, or I meant to not point it out.
Well, once Will realizes that he's able to get his key using the magnet, he takes his sheet, he ties it to the chess piece, he like shimmies it under the door, pulls the key in, unlocks himself, and then they go about it the way that it seems like the show wanted them to, where he goes upstairs. And that's kind of interesting to me that he like went directly upstairs. I feel like I would maybe like go and look in her cell to be like, sup, You just told me that was a hair tie. What else do you have going on in there that you're not telling me about?
Maybe he was just like so focused on getting it done, where it's like, okay, he knows that the stool's in Avery's room, and he knows that Sandy needs the, or not Sandy, Samara needs the key, so, or needs the stool. So that was the.
Did we at this point have the clue or no? I can't remember.
No. Well, I think by the time Will found out that the keys were magnetic, or the chess pieces were magnetic, like that was before Alex gives the call. Because I'm pretty sure it's only Kasi. I almost got messed up there too. I feel like it was only Kasi who got the call of like, okay, hey, the chess pieces are magnetic.
Yeah. Okay. So Will goes upstairs. He finds the key. They come down. They bring the stool with them. Something that was interesting to me, and this happened in both instances where the stool was used. They put the stool together.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you not keep it apart? Like, do you think you're getting a stool in one piece through the door? You know what I mean? Like, they had to unassemble the stool.
I think what they might have done was
through.
Put the stool together like super early in the task before they realized they needed to get it to someone else's door who was still locked. It would have been really good foresight to then take the stool apart, but I guess neither Greg or Avery think of doing that.
Yeah, I think that also comes down to the communication of the team as well, or it's mole behavior, because like all three, I mean, not all three, but both people on that first floor could have easily said like, oh, you have a stool, like, you have a screwdriver? Are you able to put it together, take it apart? Because we only have a small door, or like a small frame to get this in. Because if you're saying a stool to me, like, oh, it's kind of big. So just saying that there's the opportunity to be mole-ish with that stool.
At every turn in this task, there was an opportunity to do some mole-y stuff.
Yeah, and especially just bringing it down fully assembled. But okay. So we have, let's see, Avery brings the stool down. They get the stool and screwdriver through to Samara. Samara gets her key. They get out. So the last team is Joy, Greg. Hold on, Valencia typed it out for me.
It was Joy,
Kasi.
Greg, Kasi. Yep.
I had to scroll up just to see how it was pronounced. I knew who it was. Just Joy, Greg, and Kasi. So Joy doesn't see anything outside Kasi's door, which again is suspicious. She also can't reach her red key. They get the clue. So Casey and Dom, as the masterminds, are offered a clue to, or how much did it cost them for that clue again? $1,000, which isn't bad.
Was it only 1,000?
It was only 1,000.
Ah, okay. I didn't write it down.
So, a clue for $1,000. Dom is like, no, and Casey's like, I'll take responsibility for it. Put it on me. So they get the clue. The clue helps Kasi figure out what she has to do. Also helps put some suspicion on Joy, because again, why wasn't Joy able to see this? They are able to, then Kasi goes upstairs. She gets Greg out. Greg brings down the stool. And it's during this time that the masterminds are then offered $5,000 for 5 more minutes. And Dom, again, is like, nope. And Casey's like, yes, they're not out here. If they don't get out here, we win nothing. So, again, it's a little suspicious to me because it's not hard math. Okay, you could have won 10. You doubled it, you're now at 20. Subtract 1, you're at 19. Subtract 5, you're at 14. You're still $4,000 up of where you even would have been. And that's 14 grand more than 0.
Yep, exactly. That was literally, I had the exact same thought process. Like, as long as you weren't dipping back under 10,000, why not just go for it?
I mean, to me, even anything above 0, like, is still money. Because the other option, it's not like the cargo thing where like, oh, you bring this, we'll gather money. It's okay if one group isn't successful. Everyone had to be successful here.
Yeah.
So we've got them agreeing, okay, we'll do the 5,000. It was more, again, pushed by Casey. And they're able to get out of this jail cell with 4 seconds left.
Yeah, it was close.
Very close. So I have a task for you, JD. This sometimes happens when podcasting. My dog is being a little bit obnoxious and needs out. I need 30 seconds. So you get to monologue about whatever you want to monologue about right now.
30
So
seconds.
congratulations
All
on
right.
your first monologue. So be right back.
All right. So something that I wanted to bring up regarding the first group of Jacob, Pranav, Sandy. Jacob, I'm still very much on the Jacob is suspicious train, maybe even on Jacob is the mole train. I think what happens here is that Jacob is aware of everything that is meant to be revealed in this task, the magnetic chess pieces, the hints that the masterminds get. I think Jacob was hedging his bets on at least one of the other two groups not finishing this task and then being able to just cost the group money without doing anything that would draw suspicion to him. So that I'm still very much on the Jacob is suspicious train. Maybe I'm just getting super tunnel visioned. You can tell me I'm wrong. I'm willing to admit if I'm wrong. Let's see. Is there anything else about this task in particular? I really do like the style of task where like it's 3 different groups pretty much running the exact same thing and just seeing the different approaches to how each group is able to sort of either get the task done or not. So 2 for 2 on task, production, execution, whatever the word is for that creation. I don't know. Yeah, Carrie's back. So monologue over. Thank you.
I think I left the monologue when you said that you think Jacob might be the mole.
I do. I might be on the train. I do.
Your monologue.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like I could see the world where Jacob was hedging his bets on one other group not finishing and just not acting suspicious at all.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. See, like I'm not extremely crazy for thinking that, I don't think.
That's the thing, is like through 2 episodes right now, almost everyone has done something where you could be like, you're the mole. There's almost no one who you can't justify an explanation for, but that makes sense to me for Jacob. Again, a bunch of us have that gut feeling. I will not be surprised if it's him, but again, Joy is a pilot and there was a plane.
Yeah.
But they made it out with literally 4 seconds left, which was really like exciting in the moment to watch. It was, I was stressed. Like I don't know if
I didn't know that they were going to make it.
Though. Yeah, as a natural villain, JD, because that's what you are. Let's be honest.
Clearly.
Let's establish this quickly. As a natural villain, were you rooting for them to make it out in time?
I would have loved the drama if they didn't make it. Because all eyes would have been on Joy, all eyes would have been on Greg. Kasi isn't someone we see catch a lot of suspicion, so I wonder if anyone would sort of push for more suspicion on Kasi if she didn't make it. But I feel like the reason Group D of Kasi, Greg, and Joy, the reason they took so long, I feel like is because of Joy. Because had Joy seen anything by Kasi's door, I feel like that would have gotten the group somewhere sooner.
Yeah, it just is so weird that she kind of like just gave up and is like, I'm gonna do these push-ups instead. I don't know.
She was working on that upward momentum. We established that already.
All right, so currently the pot is at $26,500. Something I do wish that they would say, and I think they did this more in the original mole, is like the pot could have been blah blah blah, you have made blah blah blah, because I think it makes it a bit more dramatic of like, oh, the mole has actually. But then I guess you also have the issue of like, do you count it where they could have actually won 20 grand versus 10 grand for this one? Because then they've even come up like +4.
I think I think you do have to consider like what the absolute maximum could have been, because that's sort of implying that everything went right, no sabotages
Yeah.
happened, whether intentional or not. Just quickly doing the math in my head, I think in the ideal world where the mole is just not doing anything, the pot at this point would stand at 50,000, because if it's 5,000 cases from the first mission, that would
Hmm.
then get doubled for the successful stealing. So that would be 30. And then,
No, but they could only steal one case, I think.
oh, yeah, they could only steal one case and it
So
would
it would have been
double.
20 grand total
Yeah,
because
so
you would
then it
have
would
the
be
two
40.
5,000s and then a 10,000.
Yeah. And then the 20,000 from this task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now, based off of our quick calculations, the mole has prevented $13,500 from,
Yeah.
and I say mole asterisk because like
It's not just
if
the
Joy,
mole. It's definitely
yeah,
not just the mole.
if Joy's not the mole, then like it's not $13,500.
Yeah, pretty much.
So there's that. But the mole and friends have
Yeah.
prevented $13,500. All right, so the next morning they're staying in a fancy hotel. So
Mhm.
when they got to the mole house, which is what I called it, the mole house, the labor house, if you will.
The labor.
Yeah, the labor lounge, maybe.
I like that.
That I thought they were staying there for the whole season, but they were
I
there for
did
like a night.
too. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that's
Like
sick.
in my head it made sense because I think this was filmed during like a spike in the pandemic in Australia. So it would have made sense if they were just like staying and being lodged at one location.
Hmm.
Like that
But
wasn't
no, they
true
were
for
flying and
other other mole seasons, but I like that would have been a change that made sense to me.
yeah. So they're staying in this like very nice fancy hotel. We get some conversations the next morning, and here we see the link up that we've kind of been like, are they suspicious of each other or actually they allies? And we've got Pranav and Jacob having a
Mhm.
conversation. They both agree that Sandy isn't as moley as they originally thought. So they want to push some mole suspicion on Sandy so that people maybe vote towards her or
Mhm.
take quiz answers towards her. Um, what do you think of this duo?
I mean, it's a duo that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like Pranav, and I don't have a negative opinion about Jacob. So it's a duo that I'm rooting for. I like that their strategy is to sort of like undermine all the other players by directing them somewhere where they don't think the mole is. Because
Mm-hmm.
even if Sandy, well, if Sandy is the mole, like not everyone is going to be putting all their answers on Sandy, and there's still a lot of people in the game much more suspicious of Sandy at this point. So I feel like their approach to how they interact with the other agents or players, I feel like it's solid.
Yeah, and here's something that would entertain me. If Jacob is the mole and he plays Pranav, like, because Pranav is probably the smartest person there,
Hmm.
based off of like what we're being allowed to see. And I would just kind of love if he fools Pranav.
That would be really good.
So, but I'm also, if they are both not the mole, I think this is an interesting duo because again, like you said, they do two things and they work together successfully in both of them. So it makes sense that they would start trusting each other.
Yeah, it makes
The
sense.
other,
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
yeah. And the other key thing is not surprising, but Will finds it unbelievable that Samara did not see and thought it was a hair tie, which
Well, leave it to Will to
valid.
know what a hair tie looks like.
True, he does know. He is brand manager of scrunchies, is what we
Yeah.
found out. Just kidding, I made that up. But imagine he was. I'm gonna look him up on LinkedIn after this. Uh,
Do we have a last name?
we'll find one.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
positive.
out
Listen,
there.
I have friends who, if I were to say, like, I've seen them find people with less information. Um, not to put something on blast, but they found a guy who, like, one of our friends matched with on a dating site by his Quizlets that he used in college. I'm not even joking.
That's
not
awesome.
joking.
Like I can't be anything but impressed at that.
Like no social media presence, but he was found through his Quizlets. No one is safe on the internet.
Okay, I don't want to derail this too much, but how do you even find someone through Quizlet? Because it's all like usernames.
Bro, I have no idea. Like I literally I can find out and I'll report back, but
okay.
We found other information, but the Quizlets was the starting point. Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I couldn't even begin to imagine what like the progression of identity is there.
Like the FBI works hard, but my girls group chat works harder. So when that happened, all of us were just like, wow, that we've seen people pull some stuff from different places, but genuinely impressed. So after this, we find out that they're going on a night out, which I'm like, oh, the challenge. Like, let's get drunk and talk some shit. I was ready for it. Yeah, like, this is gonna be great. But joke's on me that we're actually getting a second mission here. So they are separated into two vans. One van has 6 people, another van has 5, and they are getting directions to what ends up looking like, I don't know, a big warehouse type of thing. Yeah. And they pull up and get out of the van, and like God, Alex is like, van 1, make your way to sector 31. Like they get scared. They're looking around.
Like out of nowhere.
It's like, God, is that you? No, it's just Alex. And in this case, she might as well be God. So the 2 cars have to go to separate rooms, and here's what she says. She says, listen, you have the easiest mission of the whole season tonight. You will get 10K added to the pot if you sit here and do nothing for the next 45 minutes. And it's like, oh, okay. However, if someone pushes that red button that's over there, your whole team is exempt from elimination. So I was like, oh, wow, like that's, wouldn't you just like sprint over and hit the button? But then Alex was like, nah, dog, here's what you have to do. I locked Nitro out and he's barking. So there's a computer over there that needs a password. And in order to be able to hit the button, you need to figure out the password. And everything you need is in the table, in the other room.
Yeah,
however,
in a room that's like down a hallway.
Yeah, give me 1 second to let my dog in.
You got it. I would also
you wanted out.
I just wanted to add really quickly that I really love. I feel like this is the first instance where we see Alex like just like fully diving into the role as like the sort of like narrator of the whole thing, because after the end of like her explanation of the challenge, like she turns off her microphone and was like, that was some of my best work. And I really appreciated that moment, because like watching it happen like was sick, and just like seeing her know that she did a good job, like I really appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I love that little like character clause we got there. So we find out there's some rules that 2 people have to stay in the original room next to a phone, and 3 people can be in the other room where the information for this password is, because every 10 minutes the phones are going to connect from the 2 rooms and they're able to talk to each other. And someone has to be there to answer it. So 3 people can be in one room, 2 people can be in the other. Cool. There's 45 minutes for this to go down. And I didn't write down who was in the 2 different rooms, but we can probably figure it out. So
yeah, I have them written down. I can read them off if
perfect. Go for it.
All right. So in Sector 31, the group with 6 people, that's Dom, Jacob, Samara, William, Kasi, and Joy. And in Sector 45, which was the second group, that's Pranav, Avery, Greg, Casey, and Sandy.
And as soon as these 2 groups get put in their rooms, we have, like, without even hesitation,
not even
Pranav and friends
passes. Yep.
are just like, we're going to figure out the password.
It's so
Whereas the
interesting
other,
because like immediately the two groups like just go in opposite paths. Like everyone in the group of five is like, yes, we're going for the exemption. Everyone in the group of five is like, or everyone in the group of six is like, no, let's just stay here and get money. Like to see that immediate sort of dichotomy happen was very interesting to see.
yeah, absolutely. And this whole addition of every 10 minutes the phone is going to ring, what a
Mhm.
brilliant
That was
idea.
really good.
Whoever thought of that, give them a raise
Chef's kiss.
because, yes, fantastic. So the group is figuring out the password. The other one is like on their moral high horse, kumbaya, right?
Mhm.
And then the phone rings. So it's Greg and Casey who are in the money grabbing room, the people who are the group trying to figure out the password.
Mhm.
And so Greg answers. He's just like, you know what? I'm going to say that I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to lie. I'm not doing this. So the first conversation goes like, okay, the other group believes that, yeah, they're all there
Mhm.
just chilling, waiting to get this 10K. During this, we get some passwords tried out by like the password searching team. Brain
Mhm.
isn't it? Unreal isn't it? Here's something that I noticed. I rewound a little bit to see if I saw this right. Which we found out that it wasn't the actual password, but it was a little suspicious to me. Pranav spelled berserk wrong when he typed it in.
He did. Oh yeah, he did. He missed an R.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I only remember that happening because that's also how I spell berserk in my head. Because you don't
Mm-hmm.
really hear that first R. To me at least.
Well, now I'm trying to think of it. I mean, given like I've been not pronouncing someone's name right the whole fucking podcast, so I'm not the best person to ask. But I was like, wait a second, I think they're missing a letter, and I rewound, and I'm like, oh, mole. But
I mean, if
the
it
other
was
thing
mole
was,
activity, I think it's fair play because I feel like me and Pranav are not the only people in the world who forget that there's two R's in the word berserk.
well, the other issue was that was the guest that also locked them out for 3 minutes or a minute. So
Oh, just a
I
minute,
could
yeah.
see being like, not noticing it or whatever, we'll try it later. But I just want to point out there that he, the lawyer, the smart guy, spelled berserk wrong.
Greg wouldn't
So
have because he's smarter than everyone else.
he's pretentious. He knows
Yeah.
how to spell words. He knows where all the R's go. But so we do find out in this that, because at first when I saw the thing of like the warning, like, oh, first of 3 attempts, I'm like, do they only get 3 attempts at this?
I
But
also thought that, yeah.
yeah, I was like, they're being bold, just like guessing. And that was the other thing. I'm like, it's the third guess. He's wasting the third guess on, like, they're done after this. And you didn't even spell the word right. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
But they just get locked out for a minute, which I'm like, oh, that's not that bad. That ends up
Yeah.
being a critical component a few minutes later.
Mm-hmm.
So the phone rings again 10 minutes later, which means there's 25 minutes left in this. And Greg answers, and he's like, let me talk to Dom. So Dom and Greg are talking, and Dom's asking Greg questions. And Dom notices that Greg is saying, well, I'm not looking for the password. I'm sitting here. And then noticing the pronoun we is not being used.
Right.
So Dom's like, get everybody to say hello at the same time. Smart by Dom.
Yeah. It's a fair
Kind of
ask.
surprised that didn't happen the first time, to be honest. Like, they only talked to Greg on the first phone call where they were like passing the phone around.
They
Like,
were past, yeah.
you're like, and who couldn't afford the flight to the Vegas trip, like on FaceTime, you know? Like, it's just Greg that they're talking to, and the rest of the group on the other side. I was very confused by that move. So that's when he's like, okay, well, here, like, give us a second, talk to Pranav. And so Casey leaves to supposedly go get the other players to come back so they can all say hey at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, Pranav comes back and Casey stays and doesn't mention at all, like, hey, they're on the phone asking for us. Is Casey the mole?
That was very mole-ish behavior from Casey, and I don't have any good defense against saying otherwise. Like, that was extremely suspicious of Casey to do.
I was like, oh my God. I really thought it was Joy, but here we are, Casey. That was just straight up defiance of not just Greg,
The
but
entire
also
group.
a very concrete plan. Like, yeah, she's only going to have to argue Greg in terms of like, oh, Greg didn't tell me to do that. He didn't say to do that. Like, she only has to argue one person. There's only one person who like knows the actual truth. But that's shady.
It is. But I also think it's smart because if I were to sort of give my projections of what the cast is thinking, like, you're more likely to believe Casey over Greg. So
100%.
even if Greg is telling the truth, if Casey's the only person who can verify that and she isn't doing it, you're only going to become more suspicious of Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. So while Pranav's on the phone, this part cracked me up. Pranav's like, yeah, like, hey, what's up? So yeah, we're like looking for the password. Aren't you guys looking for the password? Like, basically just like
admitting it. Yeah.
And Pranav is basically like, I'm going through a tunnel, gotta go, bye, and like hangs up on the other group.
Just out of the blue.
Just hangs up. He's like, I didn't know what else to say, Greg. I'm sorry.
And I mean, at that point, might as well. Like, you got a good idea that the group of 6 knows that the jig is up, so might as well. Like, wasting time on the phone anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that's not wrong, but then again, you can see it from he spelled berserk wrong, and he just hung up. He told the other team what they were doing, and hung up on them. It's Pranav the mole, and he's a lawyer. Just saying.
And he's a lawyer. Well, law student. I don't know if that's a distinction to make.
Yeah, he still has to pass the bar, and I guess it depends on what state, because there's been some lawyers I've met.
Is there a bar in Australia? Or a bar equivalent?
I don't know. Yeah, it's the mole quiz that they take at the end of the episode. So I don't know, like Pranav did some things where I'm like, I don't know, you could be the mole.
Yeah.
But at this point, that gets the other room to be like, shit, we need to look for the password. Like, we gotta go. So Alex jumps in with maybe 10-ish minutes left. I can't really remember, to be honest. I think not a lot of time
around
left.
10, yeah.
And says, what you need is in the table, and repeats it, is in the table. And it's at that point, it's not a table that is where they thought the things were. That's a desk. And they're like, oh, in the periodic table. So both teams take apart the periodic table. They start putting their clues together. And they both figure out that the password is salvation. Go sprinting back. But Pranav and friends, I don't know why I've made him the captain, but he kind of is.
Well, it did feel like he was like the leader of that group, I'd say.
Yeah. Who in that group typed in mole just to try mole?
Oh, man. I think...
Because you have the list of
that
the groups.
was... It might have been Sandy, I think, who typed in mole.
I think it was too. It was definitely a woman.
Yep.
Read me that group again real quick.
It was Pranav, Avery, Greg, Casey, and Sandy. I think at the time it was Greg and Sandy in that.
Yeah, it was definitely Sandy who did it.
Yeah.
So,
but I feel like it was also other people like saying it's mole or just try mole.
It's just her and Greg in that room though. Oh no, because they were in the. No, you have to come back to the original room.
Yeah, you gotta go back to the original room.
So it was just Greg and Sandy. And so Sandy's like, okay, mole. And that locks them out. So Pranav and friends have the password figured out before the other room, but the other room is not locked out for a minute. And we leave the episode, this cliffhanger, and given, like, yes, I know episode 3 is up, But some of us did not watch the next episode because we had to podcast about it and did not want to podcast knowing what happens, because it's really hard to do that. Although JD, you've done a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we leave on the cliffhanger of seeing both teams hitting the button. We don't know who's hitting it first. That's where the episode ends.
And credits. Yep.
These have been 2 very good episodes.
I agree. I think this is the mole done right. Like, if you think about this being a reality show produced by Netflix, I'm not at all upset by the cliffhangers just because of the nature of how Netflix produces their shows, not even just reality TV. Like, the cliffhangers make sense at the end of every episode because you're more than likely binging all 5 of these episodes, or most of the 5 of these episodes. Again, if you're not Kari and podcasting about it and not wanting to have to spoil yourself. So yeah, this is a series I would say definitely meant to be binged. So the cliffhangers don't matter too much. So I like where they decided to leave points of suspense, even though more likely than not, you're watching the next episode in 5 seconds anyways.
All right. I'm going to get on a soapbox here real quick.
Go for it.
I think Netflix has done themselves a disservice with how they are releasing these episodes. And here's why. We don't know who the mole is.
Mm-hmm.
A show like The Mole is going to benefit from online discourse about it, especially something like Twitter. You know what I mean? So, like,
True.
I think the smart thing to do with The Mole would be you release episode 1, maybe even episode 2 today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then next Tuesday, release 1 or 2 episodes. I would ideally say 1, because I think you want people to have time to talk about it, to figure it out, to put their theories out there online, versus like right now, there are people in our online communities who have watched all 5 episodes before the sun even rose this morning. Like, they waited up for the mole and watched all 5. There's some of us who are like, oh, I can't get to it because like I'm working and then I'm going out on Friday. I'm going to watch them over the next couple of days. And like, it really makes having that online discourse difficult because you have people over 5 like different hours of this television show. And I think that popularity would increase if we're all on the same page. Like, this hour of this TV show came out, we get to talk about this 1 hour. Don't make us wait a full week. Like, if you want to do 3 times ever, I don't care. But like, this whole let's drop 5 episodes on the first day, all of us are in places. Like, I just think that it's doing a disservice to what the show could do in terms of its ratings, its popularity, the viewership, whatever, by building up the conversation a bit. Just my opinion.
I agree with that. I think Netflix has just committed themselves too much to the binge watching format. Yeah. I absolutely agree with the point that dropping 5 episodes at once is just absurd, because only like crazy people will be able to watch that amount of content within a week on top of whatever else they have going on in their lives. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, the show would absolutely benefit more if the sort of release of episodes is more strategic. But I think just because I feel like the fact that it is being produced and distributed by Netflix kind of transcends any sort of like strategic like editing or release like schedule.
No, I get your point, because they have built their platform on binging things, but it just seems like we could do more for this type of show. Like, I think you can build a bigger viewership if you are promoting the online conversation about it, because like in the same way, like I podcast about The Circle, and like when I used to teach and I'm waking up at like 5 something in the morning, like I got spoiled on the first season because I like opened Twitter at 5 something in the morning when I wake up, and like people waited up and watched and like live tweeted it, and I'm like, oh shit, like I didn't mean to see this. Like, at least give me 24 to 48 hour window to watch this thing. I think binge watching reality TV is a great model if it's already been out for a bit. But when we're all seeing this for the first time, I just think it's difficult to, like, you're taking away a fun component of it. One of my favorite things about reality TV is jumping on Twitter and being a part of the conversation, reading what other people have to say. And now it's dangerous. Like, I went to look up Osei on Twitter to see if he was there so I could DM him. And instead, it's all like things about Osei that's like, oh shit, I do not want to see any. I don't want to see spoilers about the next 2 episodes. Like, I want to steer clear of this. And so it just kind of sucks that we all have to be in different places because of the way they release it. But I mean, it's cool that, I guess in a way, I have a few friends where I'm like, oh, these 5 episodes dropped, like, you should watch it so we can talk about it. And people are like, oh yeah, it lines up with me ending a show. Here are things to watch this weekend, but I just want to have fun online. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. I feel like the barrier of entry for like the general online discourse, because there's so many episodes dropping at once, will vary because not everyone is going to have time to watch all 5 of those episodes. Like even today, I found myself like not really checking my phone at all because I was worried about getting spoiled. Yeah. So I mean, like, it's unfortunate that like that's what the side effect is, but I think the fact that people are even just talking about the show, I feel like that is a win.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. All right, let's end this with one final question. Who is the mole?
Who is the mole? I think for right now, I'm going to plant my cap on Jacob. I think everything about Jacob just seems too right. And that to me is setting something off.
I'm not disagreeing. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer. I think there's people who have much lower probability. Like, I know Will came in saying, like, I want to act like the mole, but like, Will cares too much. I just don't think
we're
that
not
like
really
Will
seeing
can
any
be
of
the
that.
mole. Yeah. I think I want to say Joy because there was a plane.
There was a plane, yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can. I feel like I have to stick with that just out of being stubborn. But if I were to give a non-stubborn answer, I'm gonna go with Samara because you know what a hair tie looks like.
Yeah.
You were in the bad group the first time. You did enough to at least slow down your group in the second one because if, in my opinion, the mole knows that hey, Alex is going to offer 10 minutes off. Like, if you can slow your group down, you don't have to necessarily like be throwing haymakers to sabotage, just slow it down a bit. So that kind of like lines up with that sort of sabotage. And in this one, she gets to kind of like lay low because it's much more of a group think than it is an individual.
She's in the group of 6, so there's 5 other people that are able to just screw things up for her.
Yeah. So my stubborn answer is Joy, but my real answer is Samara right now.
Yeah. I think moving forward, I'm just going to be reminded of there was a plane in the first half.
Yeah. Every time you doubt it, just remember the very first thing was a plane and Joy is a pilot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll round this out with I have to make you a banner. Hold on. Create a banner. Follow JD.
I got a banner. I feel important.
What's your Twitter username?
Dead Crush without the U. So DEADCRSH.
So it's Dead Crush?
Yes.
Okay, because I always thought it was Dead Crash, but
I've gotten that more than I've expected to.
I mean, I still don't know Casey's counterpart in names, so it makes sense. I would think it'd be Dead Crash.
Give it one more try.
Okay, there's Casey and no, it's not Cassie. Cussy? No, that doesn't make sense. Shit, I gotta scroll back up.
We'll get there.
Cussy. How do you just say it again?
Cassie.
Cassie. God, I suck. Okay, JD.
By the time we film the episodes 3 to 5 podcast, we'll be there.
Okay, that's the goal. Okay, so what do you do on the internet?
I talk a lot of random shit.
Living the life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just here in my little corner saying my little thoughts. If you want to check them out, the Twitter handle is right there. I am at DEADCRSH. And yeah, check it out. If it's your vibe, I'd appreciate a follow. If not, totally understandable.
if you've decided in these 2.5 hours that you never want to hear me again, then all right. Well, I'm KGD26 on all of the platforms, and then over here on Silent Podcast, I know Cool Water Show has been on a little bit of a break. It wasn't a planned break, but Katie's been vacationing. I vacationed. Katie and I met in real life. We got to take a picture together. We watched the Cowboys-Giants game. The
did
Cowboys
she go to
won.
Chicago or did you come to New York?
I went to New York City.
Gotcha.
So we were there. My boyfriend and I went for like a day and a half. And so we met up with them for like the Cowboys game. And then we saw a couple of my boyfriend's friends for the other day. Just a quick trip out of Chicago. Nice. So while we weren't podcasting, we finally met in real life. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, I think, with some Real Housewives. So if Cool Water Show is your jam, then we're sorry about the break, but we are back. Otherwise, that's all I'm podcasting at the moment. But the challenge comes back, I think, this week. And so I'll be back with that. Fortunately, unfortunately, whatever your opinion is. But you can listen to that too on TJ Hates Quitters. But otherwise, you can listen to us in a bunch of different forms. So if you like the YouTube video, then search us on YouTube or Twitch, another way as well. So search Silent Podcast, give us a follow. You can also follow us at silent_podcasts. In addition, our Big Brother crew has been doing some pretty cool interviews that you can watch on YouTube. So they got to interview Taylor, and that interview has been so highly reviewed by so many people within the Big Brother community. So really if you haven't watched that yet, it was so good. And I didn't watch the season, but follow along with Taylor's story via Twitter. And they did such a good job. You can tell she just felt a different level of comfort with our crew over here. And they also interviewed Monty. So you've got some good stuff to watch. Yeah. Follow the YouTube. And if you like to listen to us in podcast form, this will be up Apple, Spotify, all of those. So rate, subscribe, give us 5 stars. It was our first episode, and I think it was great. So if you don't think this was 5 stars, then don't rate us and wait until our next 5-star episode.
Or you can give us 4 stars. We'll accept that. I'll accept that.
No, we don't accept 5 4 stars. Don't listen to JD. This is his first time on here. It's 5 stars or keep it moving.
5 or nothing?
Well, it's not 5 or nothing. It's 5 or don't rate us. That's it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. It's what I like to say is if this isn't a 5-star episode to you, then just wait and we'll hopefully put a 5-star episode out for you. And if not, just don't vote at all. I went canvassing last weekend, and I'm canvassing for a Democratic candidate. And I was like, "Oh, are you planning on voting on November 8th?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, can I convince you to vote? This person is a great candidate, whatever." And she's like, "Well, I'm Republican." So I was like, "Oh, don't vote then." And then just walked away. So
I feel like that brings
type
some
of energy
kind of
here. Why?
I mean, from a nonpartisan perspective, I feel like you should be encouraging everyone to vote. Nope, but I mean, if you're backing a Democratic, if you're backing a Democratic candidate, I mean, it is valid to ask all Republicans not to vote.
Yeah, I just was like, okay, don't vote then. Bye.
Yeah.
It was only to one person. I knocked on 78 doors that day. It was only one. Goodness. So yeah, listen, I'm a big believer. If you're going to talk about it, you better be about it. Don't just be angry on Twitter. So it justifies me being angry on Twitter because I can say I went and tried to do something. So when people want to come in the mentions, go ahead. I'm going to light you up. It's one of my favorite hobbies. So I love it. But anyway, thanks for listening to our first episode. It's only 2.5 hours long, so
Yeah.
not a big deal. Listen to us on 2 times speed, cut it in half. But we'll be back with episodes 3, 4, 5, the rest of the season soon. But you'll definitely be hearing from us, some guests. We have some cool people lined up, and we are excited to cover the rest of this season for you. But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.